All right, greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Prevalent Evil Contagion podcast, the show where we discuss all things related to Resident Evil. I'm your host, Renegade Operative, and Gamescom finally happened. There was a lot of news and gameplay from the embargo of RE9 Requiem, where they showed off the scary stalker enemy that looks plain disgusting. They showed off some new mechanics and they let out the embargo, and there's a lot of developer interviews that gave quite a bit of interesting revelations as we delve right into it. But first, I'm going to introduce my panel. First, we have Black Shadow.
Yeah, howdy everyone. Hope you're keeping well. It looks like the series might be attempting to try and go a bit full circle on us after some, better part of 30 years since the original game. I feel old every time I say that, but yeah, also do expect there might be some spoilers.
Yes, one thing I have to note is that for the people who have not kept up with this review embargo and developer embargo and all the interviews, there's going to be some light spoilers and some confirmations, deconfirmations of characters. You have been warned. If you're watching this podcast and you want to go in blind, I would say wait until February and then go in, but it's going to be impossible to avoid probably everything for content creators. Just letting people know who want to go in, knowing nothing. Next, we have Enderlucian. Introduce yourself, good sir.
It's a pleasure to be on this one again. I mean, I was on that last. This is our first, or I don't know. We've had quite a few Requiem podcasts. I've been on them all, but yeah, well,
I think personally, this is our second one. We had
second one. I don't know. It seems like third one. I don't know. I'm just time's just flying at this point.
Yeah, because it was the launch, and then it's this one, which is going to be a second one, and then it's going to be obviously Tokyo Game Show, which is going to be the third one. So we're on number 2 right now.
I'll try to shoot for 3.
Oh yeah, no problem. We definitely will be covering that as soon as we can. And we have to introduce the last guest, which is Mr. Graves, a new member to the group. Introduce yourself, good sir.
Hello, everyone out there on the internet world. This is definitely my very first time ever doing a podcast with anybody. Really excited that Renegade Operative actually invited me. I'm actually very excited to talk about the games today, actually. Yeah.
And we're going to get right into it with the first question here on the document. I'm going to pull it up. Just give me a second because I'm a little bit unprepared. Sorry about that. But oh yeah, this is immediately a spoiler, so that's why that warning was given ahead of time. But I would consider it a spoiler for sure. So the developers themselves, I knew they would do this, but they basically confirmed that no BSA, no Chris Redfield in this game as far as the cliffhanger for Resident Evil Village goes. They're not going to be covering any of that. I'm wondering how you guys feel about that. I will go with Black Shadow first.
The very short version is bitterly disappointed, seeing as I've been calling this for about 4 years that they were going to do this. Yeah, I get it. I also don't get it. It's kind of weird. There was a lot the developers went into and gave information about regarding Requiem at Gamescom, a lot more than I was expecting. And it's kind of weird for me in a way because I feel like this game comes at quite a particularly important time for kind of like the wider genre. Gaming always tends to quite kind of go in cycles, and you think going back through the history of Resident Evil back, obviously 96, 97, 98, which obviously launched of our horror as we know it. Resident Evil 4 then happened in 05 and completely redefined the genre. And that obviously then spawned the likes of Silent Hills, kind of picking up the over the shoulder. You had obviously the likes of, Dead Space kicked in. There was other stuff as well, like Fear got released, but Fear feels 05, something like that as well. Fatal Frame even went into that. So, but Resident Evil as a whole, I think, kind of went very quiet in sort of the mid-2010s as well. And I think that obviously this thing got kicked on back in Resident Evil Remake 2, back when they got released in 2019. And I feel like ever since then, we've been riding this kind of big nostalgia wave, which is definitely powering a lot of sort of horror at the moment. So I think Requiem, first of all, is like in this really important point where in the midst of obviously Silent Hill's getting remakes now. So there's a lot of focus on this game, and it does have a lot to deliver. I really did think that kind of really going into the Rogue BSAA, like the inner corruption that was all but confirmed in the last game, and just really going into it, I think was the direction probably to take. I think I get why they've kind of decided to deviate from it. It feels like something they've got like in their back pocket that they can go to in the future one. Maybe that's what Resident Evil 10 basically will be, and that will be what I thought Resident Evil 9 was going to be. And that's the case. I can kind of live with that. But it's difficult as well because obviously Chris Redfield is the biggest character in the Resident Evil universe really that exists. I mean, Leon's up there as well, but it's between the two. We'll get to that in a little bit. Don't worry about that. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is, although it's not going into the road plot, I still think there's going to be a lot of like kind of like inner corruption as these things going to do. You know, big corporations doing their things. You know, we're going back to original Resident Evil in Raccoon City, and obviously it's going to be set within the grounds previously and stuff like that, which is obviously a nice touch. And there's going to be lots of nostalgia flavors here and there, but I feel like, although it's not necessarily picking up directly, it's going to feed a lot into what eventually is going to occur. So, yeah, we'll see what develops from the plot. It's not necessarily the route I would have chosen, though, because it feels like it's such an... It's not like it's a plot thread that you can do a one and done in a game. Like, you can delve into this over the course of several titles, so kind of axing that from this when you've so heavily went into it in the last title, I don't think makes a ton of sense to me, but we'll see.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. In terms of what Nakanishi said here about how he's not going to continue the Rogue BSA story with Requiem, and he's not doing Chris Redfield in this game. Okay, one part of me gets it. I understand that Chris was, I know he was in Arclay Mountain and everything, and he was dealing with that situation, so he wasn't super linked to the Raccoon City storyline, outside of a few small like tidbits here or there, like he's going to Europe or he caused a like bunch of trouble by punching someone in the face, and now it's just like, I have to go and take out Umbrella, I'm gonna go to Europe. Bye. That sets up for the rest of the future with Code Veronica and everything else, Wesker, everything else that is important. And I understand, I get it. He's not one of the Raccoon City survivors that was there at the town ground zero, like Leon or Ada or Claire, Sherry, all of those people. I would want to see them a lot more because I want to see their reactions to what is left, which is a giant crater. At the same time, I do think it's kind of a cop-out because Nakanishi says, oh, we had situations like this before where Resident Evil 6 left off with, oh, here's this big reveal of Jake in the post-credits and he might be a hero in this other town, and we didn't really resolve that. At that time, Resident Evil games are known for cliffhangers like that. It's true, he's not lying, but I also think that it's a cop-out because when it comes to the fans and what they want, I can't think of a soul who likes unresolved cliffhangers in Resident Evil. I think no one likes them. I think we can all agree in terms of fans, and we all want them kind of resolved. I know some are more important than others. Like, did we really need to know the resolve of Revelations 1? Probably not. But there's two.
I got two words for you, Ren. Sorry, Billy Cohen.
That as well. Like, where's Billy Cohen or any of these other characters or Carlos? I don't think any fan likes that stuff at all. You can do it, but we don't like it, and once it gets like bigger in terms of scale, there's gonna be more people asking about it. And I believe that Rogue BSA plot was a huge thing to leave off from. And to say we're not gonna do it or allude to it or anything, that's just kind of a cop-out to me. So I still hope that it sets up for RE10, like Shadow says. that game could be set up into something deeper. You could bring Jill back, which they brought Jill back in the movie, and it's like fans are asking why she's not pertinent. There's a lot of setup going on, a lot of stuff they can do to further and continue the franchise, but I'm not I'm like so 50-50 about it at this point. It's like part of me loves it and the other part hates it because it's not resolving something that I was really invested in with Village. So it's like that's out the window. But I'm very interested to see where the story goes, because he did say that Requiem is going to be a big step forward for the franchise, and I want to see what that means.
Something I just want to quickly add. I do apologize. I will let go on there. Just going from that as well. Something about like the concepts I've been hearing. I feel like the developers are a bit worried about something. If that makes sense. I feel like they are trying. They feel they've got to cater to so many different kinds of people that I'm worried that their focus is getting a little deviated. This kind of goes like you got first person, third person. Like, do you really need both of them? It's the common case you try and please everyone, then you please no one. And then stuff like this, like bringing out this, it's just like saying, oh, we're doing this plot point. It's like, why would you say that? It's like, are you worried that people are going to play this game and not be there and ask questions? You're trying to cut that off. If you think it's that bad, then why make the decision in the first place? So yeah, developers seem just a little skittish to me at the moment. I don't know if that might just be me, however.
I agree with that actually, because he was saying something else where I kind of thought it was weird. It was about the camera shifts, and he said we want to make the game cater to everyone, because he felt like Resident Evil 7 was way too scary. And I was thinking to myself, it's a scary game, but usually as a horror fan, you want them to up the ante in terms of what they have. I can understand there may be a premise or game that's too scary, but it's an M-rated game. You need to sort of try to break boundaries with what you're doing. So it sounded a little bit like it just sounded, I don't take it the wrong way, RE fans, but to me, this is what it sounds like. It sounded like he was implementing some new things in here that we're going to talk about that might be different or deviate from the horror formula, with relaxing, taking a break, and then upping the ante again with some new mechanics. I don't know what that's going to be, but he said that's going to cater to the people who thought RE7 was less scary to me. And I just thought it was weird the way he said it. And I was like, the way they catered to people before, all crowds, you get RE6, which ended up pleasing, next to no one, at least in the hardcore fandom, unless you care about the action side a lot and the gameplay. So I just hope it turns out well, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll get to the gameplay later, but I have like a manifesto of things to talk about with that. Believe it. We'll move on.
Oh yeah, it's fine. So we are going to move on to Enderlucian.
Oh, we haven't asked. Yeah, I was going to say.
Go on.
I thought you were going to move to the next question. I apologize.
Yeah, I was going to move to the next person. But Enderlucian, it's your turn. For the first question, what do you think about Chris and Rogue BSA not being involved in this game?
I mean, honestly, I feel like that the fact that they dropped it, I mean, it's kind of expected, given Village came out surprisingly enough in 2021, so it has been 4 years. Not only that, who knows when they wrote the script at the time. But I do like the direction they are going with Requiem, going back into Raccoon City and everything, and especially bringing a few Outbreak characters potentially. I mean, we know Alyssa, but I mean, who knows who else might be in there? I have no idea. But it is a breath of fresh air, just going back into Raccoon City and just having more lore into the past and everything with everything. But I think that's all. I mean, it would be cool to have I do get it. Chris has been in a lot of Resident Evil games. So, I mean, the fact he's probably 50 something now? I assume so.
Okay, so as far as I remember, I I
Pretty
believe
sure
it-
he's like mid-50s.
I believe that okay, Chris is slightly older than Leon, or so Leon's like 36, Chris is 38 or getting close. So he's he's definitely in his 50s or mid at this
Wow.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, now going according to because Resident Evil 5 had lots of information. I think going back, I think he's born 1973. So the man he's over 50 at this point. I think Jill's like 46, 47. Like these guys are they're getting on, which is his own conversation we'll get to later. But yeah,
I have a side question after this, but I'm gonna save it before we move on to question number 2. Enderlucian, is there anything else you want to add?
I think, I mean, that's about everything. I mean, it would be like welcome to bringing more characters, but I mean, you never know. The game's not out, but yeah. Future questions.
Alrighty, we'll move on to Mr. Grace. Mr. Grace, what do you think of Chris and the corrupt BSA plot thread not being in Requiem?
Honestly, let's see. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that they're kind of drawing away from Chris Redfield and Rogue. I do like that they're going to be focusing a lot more on like what was her name again? I forget. I'm not great with names, unfortunately. That's really bad. Very bad start for the podcast. My apologies.
it's what, Grace.
Yes, Grace. There it is. Okay. So I do like this whole thing with them talking about Alyssa and Grace. That's really cool. We get to like meet the daughter of Alyssa. I'm actually really excited for that. Yeah, Shadow and Enderlucian brought a lot of good points though about they are getting older, there's more things to do, stuff like that. Honestly, I don't really have a lot to say about this. I just honestly I'm excited to see where they're going with this, to be honest. I'm very intrigued. So
I think if there's one thing I'll throw out, I think maybe what the devs are leaning on a bit is that over 25 years, like you have got this massive cast of characters that exist, and many of them are still around. And you know, and they're saying, well, you know, it would. I get if they're suggesting, okay, this one incident happens, every single person that you know happens to descend upon this single incident every single time, and I get that. So yeah, you're not going to have every main character turn up at every game. And that's cool. I totally get that, but you know there is also the sense of why I just don't see the point of making a point of saying, oh no, Chris isn't going to be in it. Oh no, we're not touching this plot point. Just leave it up to the. Are you scared that that's gonna like scare people off and like drive down buys if they think they're gonna get Chris and don't? Like, do you not have enough faith in the rest of your cast? Do you not have faith in Leon? Do you not have faith in Jill? For the record, I still think Jill almost certainly is coming. I think is still going to come back. There's been a lot of soft relaunching with Jill over the past few years, with the movie, with other content. There was even like there's been crossovers with like other games as well where she's been involved. So I would expect to see her in this. I really do. But yeah, I don't see what they're particularly serving with it. It's a minor thing, I suppose. In the end of the day, as long as the game and the plot is good enough, that's fine. But I don't know why they're throwing these roadblocks at themselves.
Yeah, you're talking about the Nikkei collaboration
That's the one, yeah, Nikkei.
Yeah, Jill's like right in the middle of that, and I do think there's going to be a big media push even more for her in the future for sure, especially when we get to that next entry. This question that I want to ask is something that's been on my mind, and it tied into what Shadow kind of said with, are they really pushing away from certain characters? There was someone on social media that proposed the question, do you guys feel like these massive time skips in the Resident Evil timeline that they're doing now is a way to push away from legacy characters? What is the speculation behind them going like years upon years upon years into the near future where everyone is almost a geriatric, so to speak? What do you feel about that? And Shadow, I want to go first with you.
It's slightly an issue of their own making. It's not exactly their fault. I'm not necessarily going to blame Capcom here. Again, this series has been going on for 30 years. And inevitably with these sort of series, like if they go on for a long time, like a big part of retention of these series is having your core set of characters that kind of proceed long. And there's nothing wrong with having those characters reappearing as time goes. And and you kind of like you experience life with them. So you got Leon from the fresh faced cop at the RPD, who sees a whole lot of shit. Initially feels that he's got to go do something about it, obviously gets caught up with the government, and then gradually starts to see things that he'd rather he hadn't seen, and then gets obviously very grizzled, very despondent, very kind of isolated out. And then there's the part of people trying to kind of bring the old Leon back, whatever else, and that's fine. I got no issues with that. But the other thing as well is that, again, the series is 30 years old. What other gaming series can you think of is 30 years old and still has a lot of the same cast of characters that have existed since near enough the start of the series? Like, name one.
Barely any exists.
Silence is the answer. Yeah, exactly. So this is a very, and it's a very challenging situation. It's new. There's series of films out there that have this. I mean, even think of like the Star Wars franchise, for example, of going forward then going backwards, and you start in the middle, so you can kind of go both ways. Like you can't exactly do a Resident Evil prequel set in like the 1980s because like it doesn't make sense because of the way the plot is. So, but yeah, eventually you get to a point where you have to be willing to kind of, you can't keep having these main characters getting involved. And we're already starting to see it with obviously the generations going in. So you've got Grace, who's the daughter of Alyssa. You had it as well with Ethan's daughter Rose in Resident Evil Village and the DLC and stuff like that. So there's already this kind of trend of kind of moving to the quote new generation unquote. But again, a series like Resident Evil is very, very heavily dependent and quite marketable on nostalgia, and that's what we're in at the moment. We're in this big nostalgia. What's old is new, and that's fine. A lot of reason Resident Evil exists is because of the strength of personality of like Chris and Jill and Leon and Wesker and all the circular casts that go around that, and that's a whole big reason why it still exists today. But yeah, like Leon and Chris and Jill are like 50. Leon's like got to be at least his late 40s, if not older as well. And so eventually you get to a point where if you're going to be following along with quote unquote the timeline as we're in and kind of having this parallel universe, eventually you do have to let them go. And I think that we are very close to that. I think my original thought was I thought this game was going to be that moment. It might not be to the next one, but I think we're very close to a point where there's going to have to be like the big send off into the sunset. I don't know how the series will manage that. I don't know how they want to do it, but you can't keep having Chris and Jill being big parts of these games when they're like their mid-60s. That's just completely absurd at that point. Jill maybe you could get away with because they've kind of written into the virus stuff that they talked about with Death Island. That's a whole nother point. So yeah, I think it's already, you're starting to see that transition, but nostalgia is always going to play a big point. I still feel like the developers, I think they still heavily regret that they killed Albert Wesker. Because he was such a marketable person, and obviously they killed him, nearly 20 years ago now. But that's the decision they made, and sometimes you've got to be willing to do that.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of all of those things and some of the stuff Capcom was saying, where they want to turn Resident Evil into a series of isolated incidents. And there was speculation about that term of what do you mean isolated incidents? You want to focus on some stuff that's not large scale. And then when you think about it, when you think about the plot of RE7, it's very, very isolated. It's very, very singular, new character for most of the game, going through this experience in this Louisiana mansion. That's very isolated, and it worked for what it was. And the speculation from the fans was they were saying that they believe that Capcom notices how the lore is getting very, very expansive, and they want to shrink it down, which is why they said isolated incidents in the first place. And I thoroughly believe it 100%. Resident Evil, when you look at all the contents, when you look at all the games, when you look at all the characters, it is a massive lore book. And I know this is unrelated, but there was another developer, the Mortal Kombat developer Ed Boon, and he's rebooted his franchise a couple of times, where he was talking about this, and he said, there's times where you have massive scale from sequel to sequel to sequel, and then you want to shrink it down and make it more manageable and not turn it into a giant mess. And I think Capcom is on that same path, which is why they're introducing new characters, which is why they're sort of saying, hey, we kind of want to jump forward in the timeline, because people are getting really old now, and I would imagine at some point that's going to start to affect fighting skills with some of these characters. I seen a funny notion, really. Someone saying that, oh, Barry's old as dirt in Revelations 2. He can still fight. He's 60 something. But I'm like, well, what's going to happen in the next 10 years when Leon is 70? He's going to be in a wheelchair wielding a shotgun. It's after a certain point, it's going to happen, and either they do one or two things: they retire the character, or they kill the character off, or they have the character, it might be a C option where character dies or retires, but here's my child out of nowhere, then blue, and we continue the legacy from there.
Or
Good.
Or they might opt to option D for which is just create incidents that happen in like the mid 2010s. It happened in around 2003, 2004. These kind of bit areas where there's kind of a bit more barren with the plot, and that way you can still have a lot of these older the original cast in without having to kill them off. But yeah, eventually they're gonna have to make a decision. If they want to follow this parallel universe, you have to. It's inevitable.
I was gonna get to that and say that exact term, because I always go back to how they set this up with Resident Evil 5, where they wanted the series to continue further and not stagnate. What do? It's a dumb decision, and it's one that I find to be dumb, but they wrote it in a way where it's like Wesker gets bored and he sells all the viruses on the black market, and therefore anyone can make an outbreak anywhere at any time. And it tells you that we have to progress the series in some other way with other people that may have nefarious needs and misdeeds and whatnot, because we're starting to run out of ideas. And that's the first time that I noticed that with this time skip. This is the second time that I'm noticing that, where in order to fill in the gaps, because I think this is a massive time jump from Village. We are now in, I think it goes from Village was 2017. 2021, sorry. And into Requiem is 2028, which everyone was always speculating. Oh, Resident Evil takes place the year that it's in sometimes when it's going forward in the timeline for mainline, and we're good. But this is not the case for this game. And I think it might continue to advance that way, because Capcom said, we're not setting Resident Evils in the year that the game has released in real life anymore. Therefore, massive time skips may happen going into Resident Evil 10 at this point. And it's something to expect. They said this on record. So I think this is their way of continuing the series 30 years later. And also it's their way of saying, if you are beholden to the previous characters and they get way too old, well, there's always movies we can go back to and revisit in, the 2010s. There's always empty gaps in the timeline we can go back and revisit. It's like a safety net, in my personal opinion. But Ender Lucian, it is your turn. What do you think about the idea of them jumping forward into the timeline, way into the future? Do you like this idea, or do you dislike it?
I mean, it's definitely different. I mean, it can always be worse. We can definitely go 10 years ahead, but I feel like it's moving at a pace where it's not the worst in my personal opinion. But I mean, we are getting on in the years, and yeah, people are aging, and yeah, unfortunately we're not able to see everybody and how they are, but maybe that's also a good thing. But I just say personally, it could always be worse in that aspect. I mean, it's not like they're going way too fast to where everybody can't catch up. But yeah, That's all I have to say about it.
Something I just want to add quickly here. So I was just looking up just for details. The Shadows of Rose DLC for Village, where you obviously play as Rose, as Evil's daughter. That's set in 2037.
Yeah, that's true.
That's so it tells you they've already been doing this and already kind of playing around with jumping with it. It's a DLC, you can get away with that, but yeah, if you start doing that, going into the mainline series and doing that is not far different.
That's like well after Requiem when you think about it too. So the seeds have already kind of been planted for these massive time skips. Mr. Graves, it is your turn. What do you think of them doing all of these massive time jumps in the Resident Evil timeline? What do you think they're setting up for? What is your opinion?
Well, I mean, technically, games have always done massive time jumps, like especially if there's older characters that they don't want to focus on as much, and then they want to kind of push forward a bit more and focus on different characters that haven't been focused on before. Like you guys said, like Leon's, pushing 70 pretty soon, and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't really have much to say about that either, but yeah, that's kind of my opinion right there.
Yeah, I think this is their way to tell us that they want to move forward and they know the lore is getting really expansive, but they also want to leave holes behind just in case when they do retire the legacy characters, then you can say prequel. There it is. Here's Leon in all of his prime, and he's not 70 years old. He's now 30, or he's now 40, and we can continue this storyline and supplemental material. And it's a brilliant idea. It's not a dumb idea. It's actually ingenious. And I made a joke in chat. I said this is the safety net for another 40 years until they continue after that, and then hard reboot. You start over, and you can make whatever you want from there, or you can have the cast of characters go in a different direction, a completely different direction. There's various avenues you can go into to continue Resident Evil for the next 20 years, and that's what Capcom is kind of setting up here with this.
Yeah, Capcom, I think, just need to. At some point they're gonna have to sit down and make a serious decision what they want to do. They don't strike me as a group of people that yet know what they want to do, and I just feel like a slight bit of that is kind of creeping out in this game. Again, I don't know what they're doing. There's just little bits and pieces there. Just make me feel I don't think they're quite settled on what they're doing, and I think it feels quite as precise as some of Resident Evil 7 specifically. I think that's one of the things that was so strong with 7 is that it was so precisely targeted at like the player, if that makes sense. Whereas I feel at the moment there's more option around, but I feel that could well dilute the experience. But we'll get more into that as we go.
The last thing I want to add to that is you said Capcom really just doesn't know what they're doing and whatnot, and maybe they have some cold feats. I just wish they would. I don't know if this idea will ever happen. I don't think it's going to happen with Requiem, probably the next game or the game after, but I would like to see what a mainline ender Resident Evil looks like. And I have no idea what that's going to be, but the game that comes in my head the most in terms of how they said, look, and it wasn't definitive, it wasn't the ending, they still made a 5th entry, but Metal Gear Solid 4, when that game ended, it felt like that was it for Solid Snake. It was done, and it really was. And I would like to see a Resident Evil game go into that direction, but I don't know how they would do it. They would have to take some massive swings, and not everyone would agree with those swings for certain characters being exited out and death being on the door. But I believe that would be the only way to have a mainline ender game. You really have to hone the stakes up to the highest they've ever been. And I don't think that is going to happen with this entry, because Capcom, they love playing it safe. I would love to be proven wrong and see something ambitious and be like, oh, that shocked me. I didn't see that coming around the corner with said legacy character or said person, but I just don't see it happening because I feel like the legacy characters are kind of bulletproof at this moment. Like if Leon can kick,
almost literally.
Yeah, if Leon can kick the heads off of like 5 villagers at the same time, I think he'll be fine, unless they say age is really getting to him at this rate. It'd be interesting, but I just don't see them doing something like that immediately. But hey, keep me surprised. we're gonna move on to the next question, which is ironically a Leon one. But how do you feel about them openly deconfirming? I mean, how do you feel about the fact that they said Leon's involvement in this game? They decided to say, "Hey, Chris is not here." But for Leon, they said, "Hey, don't comment us about him being in this game," which doesn't seem like a deconfirmation in my personal opinion. They were easy to say this for Chris, but not for Leon. What do you think of the developers saying that? And we will go with Shadow first.
It's the usual, why not say anything? There's going to be some legacy characters in this game, like 100%. And I think actually, if I had to pick anyone, I probably would be Leon. Actually, I think that makes the most sense. To me, when I think of the RPD, like I associate that with Resident Evil 2. And Resident Evil 2 is Leon and Claire. Now Claire's doing her own stuff over with Terror Save, makes the occasional kind of fleeting appearance in the series. Leon is still very much kind of dealing with a lot more main plot. Though we haven't really seen Leon for like a while in like a proper setting. Wasn't in Village, wasn't in Resident Evil 7. So his last mainline game appearance in the timeline, quote unquote, is Resident Evil 6, I believe. Because it wasn't Revelations 2 either. Yeah, that sounds about right. So we haven't in the main plot and seen him for quite a while. And of course, the last game we did see in the series, like for us, is Resident Evil 4 Remake. Which of course is only a couple of years or so ago. So I think it makes, to me, if there's going to be nostalgia, it's part of the series. It's just inbuilt with it. Nothing wrong with that. And I was honestly kind of expecting to see Leon involved in some form or another. Again, given the fact that this is going to be dealing with kind of more the corruption, and obviously with the FBI, which gets into the government, and you get to the government, you go into Leon. So I think it's a very natural extension of that premise, and that he would be involved in kind of return makes 100% sense to me. So I think not commenting, it's the usual. If they're willing to say that Chris isn't there, and then with Leon not comment, there's no smoke without fire.
Okay, there's a few funny takes to glean from this. I'm gonna like lean into the developer's words. Wait, I'm gonna go with the first one where he says Leon wouldn't flinch at a bucket or whatever. I just found that hilarious. I know it's off kilter, but when he said that, and I went back and noticed that Leon wouldn't work for Hora. He was originally going to be in this game, but he's smiling and whatnot. I said it last podcast, I'm gonna say it again. Nakanishi is screwing with us, guaranteed. There
is some bullshit going on in this.
Yeah,
that sense as well.
That is some big bullshit. When he says, "Oh, a legacy character wouldn't flinch at a bucket falling down or anything like that," I just think of, well, in the hallway section for RE6, Leon was running through the hallway and the lightning, and he will flinch to it through the windows. So that statement is also BS. I think he knows, and he's playing along, pulling the strings ever so slightly, and I think that veil's gonna come up eventually when we get to the later trailers, when we see potentially more legacy characters, because I have a strong feeling when they reveal the next story trailer for Tokyo Game Show, that's going to be the big one. That's going to be the one where it's still going to be a lot of mystery, but you're going to see a lot more people involved with the story. And they did the same thing for RE6, where they showed all the big action set pieces. We didn't know who was who, and then when we got to the E3 trailer, it was like, oh, we're starting to know everybody now. This is Sherry? Wait, what? That's exactly what they want us to do. They want us to flip out. They want us to freak out and just have our eyeballs fall out of our heads the next trailer. And I think this trailer is going to be the one that displays most of those burning questions. Not all of them, but a good majority. You're going to be like, certain characters will be showing up. And the fact that they're more optimistic to say, hey, we're gonna deconfirm Chris, but you can't ask us Leon questions, that just pretty much says he's probably gonna be involved to some capacity, and they're not even hiding it anymore. Personally, like I said, I hope more Raccoon City survivors are in the game, because it makes sense. If you're gonna have Outbreak, you just can't have one connection. There has to be, a couple of multiple ones, and I think they're gonna do that. And the last thing I want to say is there's people that are way too impatient. I just have to throw that out there. I've seen folks say that this game is going to fail because they're not showing Leon yet at all in the gameplay. What is this? And I told myself, I don't get this criticism because this is marketing 101. If you want to excite people and not play your entire hand yet until it's time, you would wait until it's time to do so. Therefore, we're not. I think we saw a very, very small chunk of Requiem with the intro, and that was it. We have not seen this. We have seen a sliver of this game. Therefore, I'm waiting. I'm not being impatient, and when they lift the veil, we will see some of these characters in action for sure. Ender Lucian, it is your turn. What do you think of them saying that, hey, don't ask us questions about Leon when they deconfirm Chris? What do you think that means to you?
I mean, what I personally think, I feel like they're not denying it at this point. I feel like, yeah, they are definitely like playing us, but yeah, I'm just waiting for that reveal. If it's happening, kind of like the review of RE2 remake at, was it E3 2019? I think it was 2018 or 19. I think it was 20. I don't know, one of those years. Just when everybody saw Leon like that sort of reveal, though it's definitely not RE2 this time, but it'd just be like a crazy reaction. I'm just waiting for it. I just hope it's huge, if anything. If it's true.
Yeah, I was saying in chat, I tried to use RE6 as an example because I think my brain shot to outer space when you just noticed the guy that was talking in the trailer that says, all right, first things first, and he gives out all these orders. I want 2 million up front. I was like, who is this guy? Why is he wanting all this money in the trailer? And then the second trailer came up and Carla's talking to the dude on the ground. It's like, oh, you're Wesker Jr. I'm like, wait, what? That's exactly what I think they're going to pull in this Requiem trailer. They are going to mindfuck everyone with what exactly is going on. They're going to show you pieces of the game where you want to put it into a puzzle and you just don't know where it fits because you're so confused or you're just so surprised or shocked, and that's probably what they're gonna go for with this next trailer. And Leon would be the perfect person to do that with because we haven't seen him in years.
It's like when people are trying to say, oh yeah, Leon's this hooded guy.
Like, all they have to do is just drop the fact of, here's my son or whatever, and then everyone is going to lose their collective shit. I guarantee it. I swear they will lose their mind. So I was like, wait, bring the mom in because, you know, Ada has to be in the game if Leon's there, and it's just going to bring so much fan explosion. That's what's going to happen. But, Mr. Graves, what about you? What do you think of them saying that, hey, Chris is deconfirmed, but we're not gonna say anything about Leon? What do you think that means to you?
Oh, I absolutely think it's 100% bullshit. I do believe that Leon will be in this game. You cannot tell me that they're not going to bring Leon. Like you guys said, like it's been years since we've had him in a game, and probably the majority of the Resident Evil players are like in love with Leon. Obviously, I mean he's a hunky man, right? But yeah, I honestly have a very strong feeling that Leon will be in the game. I have no doubt about it. So, and if they don't, I'll be very surprised because, like you said, like people eat up all that shit, right? So, I know I do. Like I'm replaying Resident Evil Remake 4 on hardcore right now, and I'm just in love with Leon. Like I think he's just one of the better characters in my opinion, especially since he's gone through so much crap, especially in like Resident Evil 2. Like he was just a rookie on the job and had to deal with all that shit at once. Like it was insane. But yeah, I honestly feel like Leon's going to be in the game.
I feel like the game oh, go ahead. Good.
No, that's right. You go. This is something I want to add on to once you've finished talking about Leon.
I was gonna say, the game just sets itself up for this stuff completely. It says that, hey, we're going back to Raccoon City. Here's a legacy location. I know people are saying, what if this game doesn't have legacy characters? And honestly, at this point, I don't believe it. To be honest, like, I wouldn't mind if it's Grace like all the way through, but I just have a strong suspicion that because you're changing locations to Raccoon City, that automatically feels to me like a character change for a little bit. Like, you play as Leon for like a little bit and you go through the RPD, you deal with the monsters, and then it switches back. It sort of did this with Village recently as an example, where you play as Ethan for like most of the game, but then the end game you play as Chris and you're just dominating BOWs and punching them and doing these laser beam missiles from the air. So I think they could honestly do a big segment like that and it'll be totally fine. I don't mind it whatsoever. But Shadow, you were saying something?
Yeah, just to talk about characters a bit more quickly in general, because it's not mentioned in the document. With other characters coming in possibly from Outbreak, specifically due to the fact obviously got Alyssa from Outbreak, that sort of thing. I'm really mixed on this. I'm someone who has played probably about as much Resident Evil Outbreak as possibly any other person on the planet, bar maybe a few people. I've played it to absolute insane levels on stream and content, stuff like that. I really enjoy the game, and yeah, part of me, obviously, when I first heard that it was going to be Grace Ashcroft or Alyssa, obviously my eyes were my attention was piqued, we'll say. I don't honestly think we're going to see a whole lot more from Outbreak characters. There might be a reference here or there. Maybe Grace might have a reference like, oh, remember that there was that guy called Kevin or something like that, or whatever else. I could see that. I'd be very surprised if we saw like other survivors from the Raccoon season from Outbreak appearing in this game. Because at this point, I mean, in the storyline, like it's been 30 years. They're probably at who knows what parts of the world. And the whole idea, obviously, Raccoon City is that it's not meant to be lived in. Like, it got sterilized 30 years prior, and since then it's basically just been like a dot on a map, and that's about it. So I'd be surprised if we saw any other Outbreak characters like properly. Maybe there'd be a reference to here and there. I think that'd be nice. Maybe Alyssa might make mention of it in like some flashbacks here and there. I could definitely see that happening, but I'd be surprised outside of that.
It's weird because I feel when you think about Alyssa, you can say that Nakanishi already referred to her in RE7. Maybe this was the grand master plan to just harken back more into the mythos and bring that character out. I do personally think, and I'm gonna end off with this, I do think it should lead somewhere, because if we have mentions of Outbreak, we gotta have at least one or two more Outbreak characters out there who may have known about what's going on. Why was Alyssa targeted and by this person out of the blue with the hoodie over his head, and he's bagging people left and right and suffocating them? It makes me think that there's more to it than just that, and it kind of has to be. And I know investigative journalists, she probably got too close to a source, but there has to be other people that know more than they're leading on, and you could exhibit that through some of the Outbreak characters at least showing up. I did say in my video when I made it, do I think every legacy character is going to show up in this game? Absolutely not. They already deconfirmed one. So I do think we should keep some expectations in check. We're not going to see like every singular person, but could there be like a good deal that might be involved in the story and know about what happened to Alyssa? I think that is a possibility. But we're going to move on to the next question because we need to move on to that. Let's see. Oh, so there's this t-shirt that sort of talked about some plot details of Requiem, and they mentioned this term called ellipsis, and they said that Raccoon City is still on lockdown, and that's being extended all the way to 2040 due to massive safety reasons. What do you think ellipsis is? Do you think it's a new virus or a new evolution of the T virus, which mostly affected Raccoon City? T virus. What are your theories, and how do you feel about this lore of Raccoon City still being in massive lockdown this whole time until 2040? Shadow, I want to go with you first. What do you think about this?
I mean, the idea that Raccoon City as a location would be still locked down, I think makes total logical sense for a variety of fronts. It was a nuclear strike. Those things don't just pass over in the wind. And also much more sinisterly, which has been suggested in previous games like Outbreak, and a couple other titles as well. That once you have this big, massive area that's kind of locked off from the rest of the world, it makes it quite a useful testing playground to put together whatever it is that you fancy and know it's going to be in an open but restricted area. I think that's what Elpis largely is, but as more of a cover. I think Elpis, if I had to guess, is going to be the name of like the operation that is being used to lock down Raccoon City. I don't think it's the name of a virus. I don't think that it is anything like that. I think it's Operation Elpis is like the cleanup of Raccoon City after the incident, but it's being used as a front and a cover for what actually is going on in town, which is what we'll see over the course of the events of the game. That is my assumption. I could be wrong, but that seems fairly logical, and I think that is probably a pretty reasonable way to go down. It seems like decent enough writing to me.
All right, it's my turn. Now, what I think for this is it could go one or two ways. So I have the same assumption that Shadow has with the Elpis thing, where it could be an Operation Codename. We've seen this before. Even the missile strike for Raccoon City, it had its own unique codename, Terminate Bacchus or something. I forget, but I know it had its own.
It's had a couple of names actually. It was referred to as Bacillus Terminate in, I believe, a couple of localizations, but that's only in the English version, so it's not canon. I think there was also there's a file in Outbreak. I can't remember if it's actually one you find normally. It calls it Operation Emperor's Mushroom, but I don't think that they've ever actually had a official name.
But I know that they do code names for certain things like very often. There's also the possibility that this all ties into the fact that they are actively going into the town and discovering bioorganic material, but to the lengths we really don't know. And they also said that there's a hidden truth behind Raccoon City that we don't know about. This is going to be the brand new plot point, and we have like zero idea, and this Elpis thing could revolve around that. I looked up the definition of this word, and I know it is referring to some Greek mythology thing that's referring to hope. I made a speculation in my video that said it could be like a bastardized version of what they're trying to go for, because Capcom has another reference to like a painting in here when Grace gets her head eaten off, and it's like the painting of Saturn eating his son, and that might be some similes, some symbolism going on there. They might say, hey, it's hope, but it's also chaos at the same time, their interpretation of it. So I don't know what it could be. I would think that they should do an evolution of creatures. That's like a later question as well, but they said returning creatures is going to come back, so I would imagine after years upon years upon years, more biological bacteria and everywhere, it's going to look a little bit different with some of the monsters that we see, and this might be why. And it also might be combined with, hey, this is a test site and we're excavating this as much as possible. Then I also think there's another option where they're excavating, they're testing, and something else has broken out of containment. We've seen this before with scientists in Resident Evil. It's common knowledge where they will experiment on something and something breaks loose, and then it starts infecting other people or other monsters or everything. And I think it could be a secondary outbreak, which is why they announce, hey, lockdown, your safety is not imminent if you come across this region, because you'll probably be killed by something bigger, stronger, and faster than you. And that could be a logical reasoning as well. But I can't wait to see it. Unfortunately, there is no high-res text of this shirt. It's only what we've seen so far, where they commissioned it in 2026, which is a little bit before Requiem. So there you go. It's a little bit of a connective tissue, and I'm thinking to myself, those 3 years prior when they announced that, that's gonna be the day where Alyssa dies in Rimwood Hotel, because the beginning of the gameplay sequence that we've seen in the Gamescom trailer, that is a flashback to the events of the game. And I'm thinking that's probably around the time they announced that statement, hey, from 2026 to 2040, this is where this new lockdown takes place. But Enderlucian, it is your turn. What do you think of this new word, Elpis, that they're trying to introduce? Is it a virus? Do you think it's some mutation or some code name? And what do you think of the new Raccoon City lockdown from 2026 to 2040?
So I might think it's maybe, I wouldn't say like a virus, but like like kind of a mutation of creatures that roam within Raccoon City. Because I mean, the place is nuked, and there's just got to be something just living still after. I mean, not, like a mutation basically. But when it comes to just being extended to 2040, that's honestly very interesting. That's like 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
I know it's a long time.
where does it take place?
So the game takes, well, I guess it's multiple time periods, but I'm gonna assume it starts 2026 because of the flashback that you get with Alyssa and her daughter Grace before she's murdered, and then the game officially picks up 2028 when she's on the case for it.
Okay, yeah. That's honestly very interesting. So I don't know if we're gonna be seeing like later years, like closer to 2040 in this game. I have no idea, but I don't know. It could maybe open everything up.
The interesting bit is that I guess if you factor in Shadows of Rose, the quarantine is almost over. Just a few more years and it's over, because that's like 20.
Hooray.
Yeah, it's like hooray, they finally get to go into Raccoon City, where I had a joke that they're gonna turn it into an amusement park or something at this rate. But Mr. Graves, it is your turn. What do you think Elpis is, this new term that they're using? You think it's a virus, mutation, and what do you think of the new Raccoon City lockdown to 2040?
So it could probably be a number of things. I kind of agree with the whole, since it's a very long extended period of lockdown, that this could be like a testing facility, a testing site. Like, oh, some scientists screwed up again and just let something loose. We got to do an experiment. We got to do some kind of people, higher ups looking through, kind of monitoring the situation for years. Yeah, I honestly feel like it's probably a scientist did something they weren't supposed to, let it out for experimentation and for study purposes. But it also could be another strain of virus as well. Like you said, they're saying that creatures that have been in the games before are going to be coming back, so they could just be more evolved, basically.
And there is certain viruses that it's called to cite for certain people. Like I believe if the G virus breaks out somewhere, then BSAA will come and clean up the problem. But for this, it's government demands, and I believe that the government overrides BSAA. Therefore, if they want to cover up more shit, then they have the authority to do that, because they don't tell them everything, essentially.
I think it's basically whatever the plot demands is whoever's in charge, as far as that's concerned. I don't think it's very strict, very fast at least.
I just remember someone was talking about that, where they can't go everywhere apparently, and they needed, and even in the plot itself, I think it's RE6, Leon and Chris meeting was apparently the big barrier of bringing down bioterrorism everywhere, and it still like occurs everywhere and whatnot. So like, you may be right, but I just remember them explaining something like that, saying that Leon is like sort of in front and tries to be in front of everything in terms of breaking down like relations with BSA. But I don't know, again, they could say anything as to why people can't come in here and shoot everything up, and they do have the authority to do so, so it probably is just convenience. But I'm going to move on to the next question here, and that is this question. Okay, so safe rooms are not safe. Apparently, we've seen this in the gameplay presentation where the big creature will try to get into the room. It will turn off the lights. I think it's like weakness is light, and it will turn off the light if you stay in a safe room for far too long. What do you think of the idea of safe rooms not being so safe in this game? And Shadow, you go first.
I have a huge amount really to add, particularly. I will argue that I actually originally thought they were going to do something on this back when in 2019 with Resident Evil 2 remake. I actually had the theory with Mr. X in the station that as it is in the game normally, like you'd be fine. Like if you weren't safe room, he won't follow you. But if you played on the hardest setting, that he actually could enter and follow you in and restrict you from being able to save your game from like that. Which far is a feature they did implement in the main hallway. There's like an item box and a typewriter, but if Mr. X is near you, you can't implement that. I thought they were going to implement into all the safe rooms, but they didn't do that. I think as far as this game's concerned, I mean, like, sure, what the hell? I mean, you've had these rooms that are like mystically protective from all horror and danger for like nearly 30 years. If you want to kind of change it up, sure. You know, it's a bit misleading because if you're going to have a safe room, it's 100% safe. It's not exactly a safe room, is it? It's more of just this is a place that you can, you know, sort yourself out, but only if there's no one nearby, sort of thing. So, it kind of gives. I think it's kind of give me slightly Outbreak vibes in a sense, which I think makes sense. And that obviously that Outbreak is a game that once you start, like it keeps going. You don't really ever get spots to like physically just stop and reassess. They're very few and far between. So you could argue it's a bit of a callback to that. But I mean, yeah, sure. If you want to go ahead and do this, play around with it, I've got no huge issues either way. You know, sure, if that's the direction they want to take, I've got no huge problems with that.
It's my turn now. This is a symptom of be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. I remember all the memes of people wanting Mr. X to come into the safe room, and this might be their answer to it, where they have a small grace period where you stand in the safe room, you do your thing, and you equip all your items, you get out immediately before lights turn out, and then the monster walks in. There was those conceptions where I thought to myself at times, hey, in the remakes, I'm near a typewriter or Mr. X can possibly come in here. I was thinking that it was a lot more prevalent in Resident Evil 3. Maybe it was just a thing of, hey, typewriter near me, I should be safe, when that was not the case 100% of the time. I like this notion because it means you just can't sit there and dilly-dally and have the ridiculous notion of a monster trying to walk through an invisible wall and nothing happens, which is again, it's funny when it happened in Remake 2 with Mr. X, but it also kind of broke immersion because it's like he's peeking through the door. How can he not walk in? He's stopped by this mysterious force pushing him back outside. And now it's like, well, that doesn't happen anymore. Now you have to improvise, you have to adapt, you have to make strategies, you have to get in, get out as quick as possible. Otherwise, you're gonna get screwed by the one-hit kill beast. So I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think it's fine. As long as I have time to prep and get out, it won't be too annoying.
I actually reckon you could probably give the credit for this to Remedy Entertainment and Alan Wake 2. It's only a couple of years ago now that game came out, and without going too much spoilers, you've never played it. It's involved basically, dealing with a malevolent force called the Dark Presence, which is very abhorrent to light, and like you'd be in bad situations. But if you could get into a light source, you'd be safe. But they were sometimes they're pretty fragile. I suspect that this might well be kind of a carryover from that. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah, and I think that the creature itself being sensitive to light, I think that in itself is very interesting. It's gonna kind of lead into the next question, but it's like it gets harmed by that. I'm wondering in the boss fight where we eventually get to it, we'll have light sources and probably all the crazy RE shenanigans before you kill it and it's dead. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, seeing how that plays out. But Enderlucian, it is your turn. What do you think about the safe rooms not being so safe in Resident Evil 9 Requiem?
I mean, it's definitely different. I mean, there was something I do remember like seeing when RE3 Remake was releasing. Apparently, that was the case, but I guess if this is confirmed, then that's different. What doesn't add up though is the fact they did say, we did mention earlier, they thought RE7 was too scary, right? Was that something they said?
Yes.
So it doesn't like really add up why they're doing that if they're thinking RE7 is too scary. But I mean, I'm open to the idea. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
Yeah, it is kind of weird and to say that, oh, well, we felt to casual gamers that Resident Evil 7 was way too scary. It's some people that didn't even finish it. Therefore, we want to put in mechanics that will give people a breather, but a safe room mechanic where
make it scarier.
a safe room mechanic where a monster can jump in. I don't think that's giving us a breather. But...
I don't know. It's whatever.
Yeah, I think either they are trying their hardest to protect a lot of the plot, or in the interviews, they just really don't know how certain things are going to work. Again, to me, I want a horror game to be as scary as possible. Therefore, I'm down. I'm all for it. But I'm still wondering about some of these new mechanics that they're going to introduce that will either make or break the game. But I guess we'll see when we get there. Mr. Graves, it is your turn. What do you think about safe rooms not being so safe in this game?
Honestly, I think that's utterly terrifying. The whole purpose of a safe room is to be safe, right? And also the whole thing about him saying that Resident Evil 7 was too scary and then implements no 100% safe rooms, that doesn't make any sense to me. That actually seems a lot more scarier than 7, if you ask me. Because at least in 7, you were at least safe when you were in a safe room. When you're in a safe room, you have that beautiful music that plays, and you have the typewriter, and you save your data, and then you can get your belongings and you can go travel on. Well, I just hope they give us enough time to actually get our gear together and leave. Because if not, if, for instance, I'm in like the box and all of a sudden I get grabbed or something and I have to, like, that'd be annoying as shit. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this whole safe rooms are not 100% safe. I think that's going to be utterly terrifying to play on stream, so I can't wait.
Same here, same here. I think this is going to be kind of interesting. It does seem like the monster can be kited. I think if it tries to crawl up into the ceiling, you can actually run out and it'll just jump back down and the lights will never go off. So that's like a little bit of a tip for the people that are playing the current builds of the game or have played them at Gamescom. But we're going to move on to the next question, and that is, how do you feel about the idea that they said the creature itself, they wouldn't confirm or deny if it's Alyssa or Lisa Trevor? That's the raging sort of discussion going on right now. Which one is it? But they did say that the screams are placeholder screams. So if you hear a little bit of that Lisa screaming in there, it's not final. They're going to actually fine tune that. Who do you think the creature is, and how do you feel about the idea that there's going to be like another stalker enemy in this game when we had a couple in the last few entries? And I will go with Shadow first.
Okay, it's time to burst some bubbles here and upset some people. It's not Lisa Trevor. I can't believe that it's Lisa Trevor. It'd be a really bizarre dig up of the past, and B, be pretty significant retcon as well, in my opinion. I believe it was Umbrella Chronicles where the last moments were detailed fighting with Wesker in the midst of the mansion. If memory serves correct, I think she got like pinned down by, I think it was a chandelier, which allowed Wesker to escape. And then like moments later, like the mansion explodes in a big giant, explosion. Things don't really survive those sort of things. Like, I know Lisa Trevor was noted to be very obviously resilient to damage, but regenerative effects, that sort of thing. But I would be stunned if it was revealed to be Lisa Trevor. I think the design of the creature definitely seems to bear some reference or even a homage to Lisa. but I'd be absolutely stunned if it was her. And I don't think it'd make a whole lot of sense realistically either, as far as I'm concerned. But things have been crazier. As far as it being Alyssa, I think that's probably a red herring. I feel like if I was looking at a game and trying to guess the plot, like my first guess would be that it'd be Alyssa. It seems to me a little too obvious for it to be Alyssa. I mean, if you think about if you were playing this game in 6 months and you see this thing is chasing you, and then at the end of the game you're like, oh, it's actually your mother. I feels like if this game was like 20 years ago, fine, but the viewing and gaming audience is a lot wiser to a lot of issues, a lot of these sort of things, and I just feel like I don't think I go with it. I feel like it's too obvious for me, and I don't think it'd be particularly satisfying either that the thing's been chasing you is Alyssa. Like, if you want to bring her back and you want to kill her, sure. If you use it as generate as a plot point, I guess I can live with that. It's not like Alyssa was doing anything the plot wise. That sounds really cold and harsh. But it is kind of true. But I don't think it's Alyssa. Who actually I think it is, I don't know. I think that is going to be a plot point that we're not going to learn anything of until the actual game. We get into the game. I think that's going to be a point that is involved. Maybe there's another character that we get heavily involved with that has some relation to them, or it's just like kind of a Lisa Trevor case that was like wrong place, wrong time, but not actually Lisa Trevor. Like some crazy survivor from the actual the missile incident that somehow survived the explosion for reasons that we don't know and don't really make sense, but it's Resident Evil, so go with it. And then that'll rock with there. But that's my honest guess. Endelution, what are your theories?
I feel like personally there might be a chance, just because given the whole was it the Bienaviento house? Was that like initially confirmed to be Rose? I don't even know. But I mean, we've seen stuff like that in the past, if so. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it's August, almost September. It's still a while till the game comes out, so I personally have no idea, but I wouldn't run it past it. But it's definitely not Lisa Trevor, I'd say.
Who do you think you'd want it to be?
I have no idea. I mean, we don't know all the characters yet, so
That's fair.
yeah, yeah. We'll have to see. Maybe it'll be a surprise. It's Leon.
Well, we know it's not going to be Chris. They confirmed that much at least. So, damn it. Mr. Grace, what about you, man? You got any theories?
So I do not believe that is Lisa Trevor. If they pull Lisa Trevor from the dirt, since she got pinned by a chandelier in the mansion by Wesker before it blew up, makes no sense. The whole theory about Alyssa Ashcroft, that would be interesting. It's your mother chasing you, but why would they make it Alyssa, right? That doesn't make any sense to me either. I honestly believe that it might just be something from this Elpis. Maybe this is a type of virus or something. Maybe it's a new type of creature that was experimented on that they kind of let loose to study, perhaps. Or maybe it is her guardian angel somehow, some way. But yeah, I definitely don't believe it's Lisa Trevor, and I really don't think it's going to be Alyssa either.
I think I'd throw it as well. I feel like this whole kind of like, it's not exactly it, this whole kind of being pursued by family thing, like it kind of ish happened in Resident Evil Village, going back to the Shadow DLC again. I don't remember like that the doll section of all the craziness where you're getting like chased by dolls of Mio, who's obviously Rose's mother and stuff like that. And that's a very minor point of a DLC, but I just feel like it's something they've already done anyways. As I just feel like I don't think I'd be particularly satisfied. Is it because I've played loads of Outbreak? Maybe. It just seems a bit too obvious to me that it would be Alyssa. It seems it seems too obvious a swerve that it would be her. So I feel like it's probably someone else, but we shall see as we go.
I am back.
We'll move. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Welcome back. I didn't even know you left.
Yeah, I had to grab something out of the car. Sorry about that.
Fair enough.
Just get into the swing of it. Damn.
Did you move on to everyone else?
Yeah, we're about to go.
Yep.
Okay, I guess I'll give my sort of opinion on this. So I don't think, okay, one thing I want to point out, I don't know if anyone did, but Alyssa being the creature, okay, I can totally see that given context of the story. There's this murder that possibly took place with her, and we don't know the outcome of that. They're trying to draw blood from Grace. Clearly, they probably experimented on the mom first. We kind of know how this goes with Resident Evil in parallels. This might be a Lisa Trevor parallel. They might want to make us think otherwise, but it's really not. The main thing is that the creature itself is... the weakness is light, and I don't ever remember Lisa being weak to light, and that's something that people have brought up time and time again. I think that's going to really factor into whatever this new virus is for this creature. I think it'd be just way more tragic for it to be Alyssa, and I'm leaning more to that theory over Lisa. Would it be cool if they did something like that? I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I just think it's way too random and it doesn't make sense the more that I think about it. It's something that Center of Evil said, where it's like the more I think about it, the more it's like it makes no sense to be Lisa, because why? What other connection would there be? If it is Alyssa, it makes sense to Grace because that's her mom, and when she finds out, she's gonna want to get revenge. Therefore, it makes total sense to the story. So I lean more with creature being Alyssa than Lisa at this rate. At first I was team Lisa, then I changed my mind.
I stand by. I don't think it's either of them. I think Lisa is just an absurd fan theory, and Alyssa is the blatant red herring. They are meant to think, it would make sense it'd be her, then it isn't.
Yeah, a massive red herring. It wouldn't make any sense for either of them, to be honest.
Depends, because I mean, unfortunately, there's been many times where a family member has been infected in a series, like Resident Evil 6 with Deborah, and then all of a sudden she turns into this
that's true.
big, slimy, naked creature. It's like, what is going on? I was just like, okay. So I do think they may pull some swerves, or if it's not her, then I think ultimately she still might wind up to be affected, because we don't know what this new guy is doing with these tests on the virus. And we said it before, it could be potentially a daylight vaccine, which he needs, which is why he murders a guy in cold blood and slits his throat in the trailer. I'm just like, oh, okay, we're going that route. So but I'm intrigued to see what direction it goes into. It definitely has me speculating and thinking, like, it could be this, it could be that, maybe it's not this, maybe it's not that. And that's the whole theme of the game. One interesting part of the interview, which I did not list, this was from IGN, was where Nakanishi is drawing inspiration from X-Files and David Fincher's Seven. And I'm just like, that's really fucking perfect, because those like sort of murder mysteries and detective theories and the horror and whatnot, that just leans right into what I always wanted with an RE game, which is like, some detective on the scene examining something and trying to figure out what's going on. I think that'd be perfect gameplay wise, and it'd be perfect story wise. So I can't wait. Oh, go on, Shadow, you're saying something?
No, it's fine. It's just like you want to see what the Resident Evil variant of Heavy Rain. That's what you want.
I don't know about that.
Maybe without the terrible voice acting, maybe.
or the wonky controls of trying to put the baby to sleep. Yeah, we don't want that. But...
Yeah, that's like Heavy Rain had. It had some cool premises, but yeah, I see what you're getting at with that. But we're moving on to the next one, which is talking about how there's like stats and gameplay now. So I don't have a screen cap of this, because if I did, I would put it here. But Grace picked up like a bottle, and it sort of detailed how the radius was when it made noise, and I just thought that was like interesting to point out. So what do you think of like weapons and items having stats now, and do you think it'll add some more depth to the gameplay? Shadow, I will go with you first.
Yes and no. I think what it's meant to kind of slightly reflect is that Grace is in the FBI, and being a member of the FBI, and with what we've already seen of her background, she's very analytical, if not necessarily the most particularly forthcoming. So what I think it's kind of quietly representing is how she's a very much a numbers person, if that makes sense. You know, knows a lot of stuff about a lot of things and can be a bit unassuming about that. Whether I think it actually makes a difference to the gameplay, honestly, I don't think it makes a damn bit of difference. Do I need to be told if I'm being chased by a big horrible monster in a dark place, and I see an empty bottle that I can pick up? And logically, I don't need to be told, hey, you know, you can throw this to make sound. Like, I'd like to think I've been credited with enough intelligence as a human being to kind of get the context clues and understand what's going on and what we're going to do. In that matter, I also don't think I need to be. It feels unnecessarily detailed. I think it's a bit gimmicky, if anything. I don't think it actually makes any difference to the gameplay. If anything, there's some kind of cute stuff that's being inferred about like Grace's character, but that's about it. I think it will maybe also trend slightly towards, you know, a lot of gamers now can be very numbers based. We're in this kind of generation where everything has to have big numbers. I mean, just look at any of like the gacha games, something like that. They just live on, here's a number. Your job is to make this number get bigger and bigger. And people just live for numbers at the moment. This point, so I feel there's a little bit of that maybe going on. But yeah, like, I don't need to be. If I'm going to pick up an empty bottle, I don't need to be given statistics about it. Just give me the damn bottle so I can throw it and make the obvious distractions and get myself out of trouble. That's all I need to do. Am I boring? Am I old school? Maybe, but if this is the new way of gaming, I think it's completely unnecessary. Ren, you muted.
Oh, I was talking muted. It happens to us all. Don't worry. But as I was saying, I don't really need it. Just like Shadow, it's one of those things where it's like it kind of it's not the same as Revelations 2, but Revelations 2 was that game where it was like we're going to introduce so many upgrades to your character and upgrades to your guns and a lot of numbers and a lot of fire rate, crit damage, how your sway of your dodge will vary between the right or the left or the radius. And maybe it's just me, but when I play Resident Evil, I'm just dumb. I'm just kind of like, okay, you can make gun into bigger gun, and I would assume that bigger gun does more damage. That's how I kind of view it, and that's how I kind of see it. And even if they decide to put in this whole, oh, the stats are on screen, I think that's how I'm always gonna see like Resident Evil. Just if I slap a giant compensator on like a Magnum or something, I would expect that thing to hurt the monsters if I shoot them with it. So you don't. I think that does not cater to me because I'm just more visual based. I like seeing something where I know I'm hurting it or I'm doing damage or it has a weakness and I am just laying into this thing, and that's all I kind of want, is to make sure that the item or stats or whatever is just doing what it needs to do, and I'm happy and content. I really don't care if something's on the screen. It's not a ARPG like Final Fantasy 7 remake or anything like that. So I just don't need it for this game, and it's nice that it's there. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure someone's gonna love it, but I'm just kind of, it's just whatever to me.
I think Rev 2 gets. I was going to say Rev 2 gets a bit of a bad rap for it. I've heard people make this complaint about it before. I think there's two things playing against it. Most of that was the raid mode, which people kind of seem to remember more than the main game, which is kind of weird, but it was quite expansive. And also, if you want to complain Resident Evil games having numbers controlling weapons, go to the Holy Grail of 2005. It's been happening since Resident Evil 4. It was the first game that did it. So if you want to badmouth Resident Evil, You got to start at the top.
Yeah, I personally speaking, it's just I love what these games do, and if they want to introduce more of a number-based element or some type of upgrade system, that's fine. Evil Within did it. I was completely fine with it. But at the same time, it's just now that it's starting to bleed into the inventories and the menus and whatnot, and I'm just panicking, thinking to myself, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die." Could I get a gun, please, to shoot said thing and get it out of the way? So there, I'm not really going to be focused on that. I'm going to be focused on not dying. Therefore, that's kind of why I'm not really all for it. I just feel like it's a bleed in of several different elements that we saw before in the series, and I don't know if it works for me. I have to see it in action in gameplay. Like I've been recently playing another game, which is MGS3 Delta. There's a lot of numbers in there and stuff to configure, and I'm fine with it there. But I don't know how I feel about it being in Resident Evil per se. I guess we have to wait and see what happens. But Enderlucian, what do you think of there being stats on items and weapons in the inventory? Do you love it? Do you hate it? How do you feel about it?
I mean, I really haven't seen much, but for example, is like there numbers on like a bottle? Is that something you see?
Yeah, it tells you how loud the item you're throwing is and what type of noise radius will it make. I guess it would be, if the radius is small, it would be ineffective, and if the radius is large, you're gonna make a lot of noise and the monster will probably come at your direction.
Oh, okay. I feel like that's quite helpful then. I mean, I don't know what else they might have other than that, but I don't expect them to do something like Evil Within. Given Grace is not like somebody like Leon, she's not really in that department. If you get what I'm saying here, but I mean, I guess kind of open to that. I mean, it sounds interesting, but at the same time, yeah.
You know, I'm sorry to cut you off, but there's one idea I was thinking about where it's in Manhunt. If they wanted to do something cool as this and have some visual representation or whatever, in Manhunt you have this small sonar at the bottom of the screen and you can see how much noise you're making. I think that's a lot more effective than, in order to see what makes noise, you need to toggle the D-pad and select the item, then throw it, and then you can sort of tell. I just believe that little sonar thing is like, okay, if I'm running loud, right, and the common sense in my brain will kick in and I'm flashing all over the screen, I would imagine I'm making so much noise that anyone can hear me, any monster can hear me, and they're gonna draw to my location. I just think it could have been done in a cooler way, and that's one of the games that does it really well.
I feel like there should be like an option to turn that thing off.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be like, I mean, for a horror game, you would want to be like, oh, I wonder how much noise this makes. And then you like experiment and you find out basically.
Yeah, absolutely. There should be your immersion modes where there's no HUD or whatever you prefer. It's a horror game. You just go in, and if you take damage or whatever, it's like visual indicators. Silent Hill 2 Remake also did this, where you can take off all the health bars and the radio, and if you want to go in there and you're completely blind to everything, just your sight alone and what your character's doing, then you could do that. So I agree, there should be accessibility there for sure. But Mr. Graves, it is your turn. What do you think about the idea of there being active stats when you open something on the D-pad in the inventory? Do you love it or hate it?
I think it's actually kind of weird. It could be very helpful, like you said, like looking at when Grace picks up the bottle in the trailer or whatever in the demo. You could see that, oh yeah, if I throw it, it would make this much noise. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'm going to throw a bottle. It's going to break. It's going to make a lot of noise regardless of what it is, right? Like if I walked over and I smashed a mirror, it's going to make a lot of noise. So not really sure where they're going with that. I don't know why they implemented that into the game. If they're going to implement it into the game, maybe it's just a test for the demo and they're taking it out when the game drops. Who knows? But I don't know. I think it's a bit kind of weird, to be honest. I I don't need to be told something's going to make noise when in reality I know it's going to make noise, right? But who knows? Maybe it could implement something interesting with the gameplay that's never been done before in a Resident Evil game, I guess.
Yeah, if I fire a gun, because I was thinking,
yeah.
I was thinking this just now. If I fire a gun and it has that noise stat, I would assume that thing's going to be in the. It makes like so much goddamn noise. You're gonna see it. It's gonna be like, I already know that if I fire a weapon, everyone's gonna converge on my location. So it's like a thing of I don't even need it for those situations because I know what I'm gonna do when I fire the gun. So it could be cool. It could be a thing of it's just a placeholder. I guess we have to see how it progresses because it's still a work in progress for the demo. They even said that. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. If they figure out how to make it work in a logical way, then I'm for it. If not, I would prefer cutting it off.
And I also suspect if you really don't like it, you just turn off in the options.
Yep.
I hope they give you that. If they don't give you that, that'd be kind of stupid.
100%. Have you seen? Did you see the last Resident Evil game? Resident Evil. Did you see how huge the options menu in that thing was? It was absurd. There was 100 different things you could turn on and off. For sure, they'll give you the chance.
Yeah, for sure.
I 100% agree. We're gonna move on now. This one's funny. Okay, I was laughing at this one all week, but there was a criticism that talked about the idea of Grace being a scared girl in a dark corridor on social media. I saw people comparing her to Velma from Scooby-Doo, which is very fucking funny to me. So I just thought it was hilarious that people were saying that as a criticism. They continued on to say that the game doesn't feel Resident Evil enough because there's a woman in a dark corridor and there's no guns in the game, which has been confirmed already by the developers, and we've seen gameplay footage and interviews that Grace gets a gun, so that's a stupid opinion. But they said it felt like a run and hide simulator. How do you feel about these criticisms and people not vibing with Grace being fearful? I'll start first on this one since I have a bit to say. It's stupid. It's really dumb. One of the comparisons I did was when Jill encounters the first zombie in RE1 remake, and there is fear, there is tension, there is a dark corridor, and then she runs in and says, "Barry, look, there's a monster." Obviously, she was almost about to get killed by this thing. She doesn't know what it is. She's scared. And Barry puts it, out of his misery before he gets up and walks out of the room again after like a few magnum shots, which is kind of weird in itself, but I digress. Anyway, it is a thing of, we've seen this before. We've seen Ashley Graham be scared out of her gourd in the hallway and running from the knights and everything in RE4 Remake. So I'm just like, I don't understand where people are getting this from. I think it comes from impatience of not seeing legacy characters, which in itself is, I get it. I understand you're not seeing your favorite on screen or the people you think has pioneered the series, and I understand. I'm excited to see them too whenever they start to show them, but it's a matter of being patient. Ethan was a character that I wasn't really too enthused about in RE7, and then he started to grow on me a little bit, and then when we carry into Village, he's a well-known character and they did some aspects to him very well. So it's just a matter of impatience with these people. I think they're saying things that make them sound like they've never played a Resident Evil game in their life, therefore it doesn't make sense. And the gun thing has already been disproven. They said Grace is going to become a stronger character, she's going to become more resilient, and that fear is going to start to dissipate as we get more and more later into the games. And one more thing I want to point out is that other Resident Evil games do this, where a character is naive as fuck at first. I mean, Leon, he doesn't know what the hell's going on. And then later on, he is in the lab killing 5,000 BOWs just because Ada gave him a kiss on the cheek and he's bricked up. So please wait. And
Power of love, man. Power of love.
the power of love made him kill several Ivies, several zombies, fight Mr. X, and he walked in and got the virus and said it was easy in RE2 Remake. Therefore, the character will change. They will become a badass. You just have to give them time. But Shadow, what do you think on this whole ordeal of people saying that, well, it's not Resident Evil because there is a scared character running around in a corridor? What do you feel about this?
Also, people haven't heard of the concept of character development. Look, I I was surprised when I found that the character would be Grace Ashford. All right, as someone who plays a lot of Outbreak, I was surprised about that. But ultimately, name's a name, so let's forget the name. You have in story, you have a character who is, at the time of the original incident, was still fairly young, still trying to find out bits and pieces about herself. And it's kind of understandable knowing what we know, or some of us know about Alyssa, kind of very hard boiled, investigator, reporter, doesn't put up for a whole lot of shit. So it's not completely ridiculous that maybe growing up, Grace perhaps has been a bit more reliant upon that, and hasn't felt the need necessarily to be very independent in a way, because they've always had Alyssa to kind of rely on for that sort of stuff. All of a sudden, Alyssa's not there. You then have to obviously find your own destiny, your own path, yada yada yada. This is all fairly well trodden ground in the story of of how stories are written. So I think this is just ridiculous, honestly. Maybe it's a case of Resident Evil people are just a bit too used to having, super agents, Uber cops, and whatever else being like the main characters that can do a bit of piece of everything. And this harkens back again, deliberately or not, to Resident Evil Outbreak in a way. Resident Evil Outbreak, I think, for me, kind of stood out because in the midst of that, your Resident Evil, your mainline stories where you've got special force members and that sort of thing, you've got professional mercenaries. Resident Outbreak told the story of just 8 random dudes. You had subway employees, you had university students, you had a bartender, and these people that are not trained for this kind of situation in any respect, shape, or form, having to kind of try and survive the events that are going around them. And it's a tough task. That game can be really fucking hard when it wants to be. And I think that makes a degree of sense here. Again, Grace is someone who maybe not is, as the story goes, and it obviously goes into the federal days, is obviously found a lot more dependent upon herself. But yeah, in the flashback, it makes total sense that she'd be very much, what the hell is going on? It almost seems a little bit naive, if anything, given the fact that you had the original call on the phone, and is Miss Ashcroft. And my first question would be, who the fuck are you? And she's like, yeah, sure. So I think it's telling the story of kind of naive and a bit easy to run to kind of go whatever, and it's about that the personal dependence and having to learn how to look after oneself. It's just part of the story. So if people are not willing to be patient enough for this and they want to whine about it, then that's their deal. Are they still going to buy this game and play it? Almost certainly yes. So I don't think it's going to make a big deal.
Yep, that's what I constitute everything back towards. It's like, you're going to be playing the game anyway, just like the rest of us. So it's a nothing burger at the end of the day. Enderlucian, what do you think about this? Where people are saying Grace is too scared. It's not something that is reminiscent of Resident Evil. How do you feel about this criticism that people are giving Grace?
I mean, honestly, every other person that talks in the it's just silly because the game's not out. We haven't seen much of the game, and yeah, they're just gonna end up buying it in the first, in the end. So I mean, it happened with Ethan, and then Village happened, and then yeah, everybody likes Ethan. Well, not everybody likes Ethan, but you know what I mean. Character development happens. We don't know much about Grace. I mean, she's new to the series in that aspect. So I mean, yeah, just people on the internet are quick to judge.
Yeah, I would say a good bulk of people, because like I said, I was in that camp before where I was like, who's Ethan Winters? Why do I want to play as this person? I was like that at one point in time, and then over time I just started to mature and say, okay, if this is a interesting take on an archetype or whatever, I'll give it a chance. As a everyman, we haven't had that in the longest time for a character archetype. It's mostly been people who have already been trained, or they're trained in some capacity one way or the other. And I don't know if I'm saying like a hot take at this point in time, but look, I love the legacy characters, but playing as them, I'm not afraid of anything. I see them going back to basics with someone who is inexperienced and they don't know what the fuck is happening or going on around them. Because if I play as a legacy character, the main thing I'm thinking of is I have a super shotgun in my back pocket. I have a magnum here. I have like 3 knives on me. I have full on herbs, first aid sprays, and everything. And I'm going in there to obliterate almost anything. And that's kind of how it felt when I played as Chris at the end of Village. It was a power fantasy. I was going around and I was boulder punching every singular lichen or Cadeau affected werewolf in the face.
That was deliberate.
Yeah,
fair. Like that was deliberately designed that because you had gone through most of the game, scripting and saving. Like that was deliberately designed to be okay. Now you're playing as the special forces with the big stuff. Now you can like really start beating the piss out of them, and that was very deliberate. So I will defend them there.
Yeah, it's just I want to follow up with that because I have a slight counterpoint. It's just a thing of expectations. I just, even if like they were to say that we're going back to a horror element, we introduced Leon in this game, I was thinking to myself, he's not gonna go in there unarmed. He's gonna have a bevy of like equipment and everything and blow stuff away. And it's like, how do you nerf that? The only thing you have to do is try to take it away or something to that effect. But most veterans, you would expect they're going to be armed, they're going to be dangerous, they're going to be knowledgeable, and it's like, how do you balance something like that? And the only way I think they're going to do it if they introduce Leon is turn his segment into an action horror segment, and that's something I'm fine with. But it's just so many expectations with legacy characters that just sort of is ingrained into the DNA of what to expect with them, even if they do show up. Whereas in this, I don't know what's gonna happen. I have no weapons. I'm Grace. I'm unarmed. I'm inexperienced. This giant creature is trying to kill me and tear me apart. It sort of brings back that what's the word I'm looking for? It brings back that fear almost of what a Resident Evil game should be, which is, you know, you have to really use your wits about you and then slowly scavenge, and then you build yourself up, and then you become a stronger character over time with resource management, with thinking ahead, with being smart. And
it's survival horror.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
It's survival horror.
Survival horror.
And I like that. I like feeling vulnerable. If they make more characters like that, it makes me buy in and believe into their stories, which is why I started to get used to Ethan over time. And I said, okay, this is kind of cool what they're doing. It's unique. It's a breath of fresh air that we haven't had in a long time. So I'm all for it, to be honest.
Yeah. Not only that, I mean, you have people like, when it came to the RE9 rumors, it was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be Leon, it's gonna be Jill. When people like started believing the rumors, and then they were like, oh, it's just this girl that's scared, and because you compare Leon to like Grace, and it's like, you know, Leon's kicking heads in and everything in RE4 remake and all that. You compare that, and then they're kind of like downplaying it because, you know, they wanted Leon.
And I think people nowadays, they look at rumors and they start to set themselves up for disappointment. And I look, I don't know if it's just anyone else, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be agreed upon, but it's just a thing of, like, for the big second stage of the game, which I assume is what the RPD section is going to be, do you really think they would show that all first? No. They for gameplay, they would absolutely not show that all first. They would reserve that in the deck for like a little while, and then they'll take it out for a trailer, and then they'll show more stuff and say, hey, public demo, you can play as this character, or you can play as Grace. And I just, this is not how marketing works. I just don't know how people just don't get it. It's strange, and it's almost like an experiment of seeing how ignorant people can be. But I expected they would not show anything of this second segment until later in the game, and they want to hold that as a surprise. And wait. So it's just part of marketing. You just have to be patient and you'll start to see the cracks. But Mr. Graves, it is your turn. What do you think about the idea that people are sort of writing Grace off as a character? Do you think it's fair, unfair? What is your opinion?
Well, we don't really know anything about Grace yet. We just know that she's, Alyssa Ashcroft's daughter, right? And being in a predicament like that, I'd be utterly terrified too. I was walking down a hall, it's dark, I don't know what's going on. I miss my mother, I wish that she was still with me, quote unquote. And just, I I don't understand the comments and all the negative crap about Grace. No one knows who Grace is yet. It's character development, like Shadow said. Like literally, and the whole thing about I guess I'm gonna bring up Resident Evil 4 remake too, because I just absolutely love that game. When you first arrive in the village and you're in the back of the car, and then you go to the house when you're trying to find where Ashley's at, bro just jumps through the window, just basically run. Like, this dude has been, like, I don't know, like, it is a power fantasy if you think about it. Like the whole in what is it, RE8, like you said, when basically the end of the game almost, when you play as Chris and you're just completely just punching lichens and all this other stuff with your fists. Like or like in 6 when you're punching boulders with your fists. Like I do want them to go back to survival horror, and I do feel like this is the proper way to do it. I'm playing as Grace. I'm terrified, right? Like I said, I'm in a hallway. I don't know what's going on. And even in the demo, like when she's running around and stuff and she's stumbling, oh, it's phenomenal. In the voice acting, oh, we're going to get into that too later with the other questions. But man, I don't know. I honestly feel like RE9 is going to be an amazing game. I really do.
I will give a bit of defense in a sense that I did think when I would with the trailer, which we'll talk about a bit more detail towards the end of this, but like there were times where Grace came across like a bit, as I said, she's deliberately a bit naive and kind of a little bit not necessarily the most aware of the show was going on. I think there was a little bit too much of that at times, like when the lights go off. And it's pretty clear, like, Jin, you just picked up this call. It was super weird. Seconds later, like, then the lights will go out and like all the communications get blocked. Like, I don't think you'd have to be a federal agent to kind of look at it and think, maybe something very sinister is going on, especially given the line of work my mother's in and the sort of stuff that she's been in, which you're going to know she's your mother. So I feel like there were times where maybe Grace's character didn't necessarily help herself in that respect, and that's maybe why some of this is being flagged. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be the biggest deal, but I can see where some of this is kind of coming from.
Yeah, that's very true. I totally agree with that. Like the whole trailer about her picking up the phone, is this Ashcroft? Oh, yes, it is. And it just like cuts and then the fucking lights go out. I was like, yeah, I don't know why you would have answered the phone like that, especially if your mother is Alyssa Ashcroft and you know what she's been in, right? But I don't know. I guess I agree with you on that.
It's not even how she answers it, it's how she then proceeds afterwards and the lights go out and like Alyssa's saying, hey, shit's going down. She's like, nah, it's fine. But what could possibly be going wrong? It's like, come on, it's a little bit silly, but I think the end product will be fine. I think it's a minor thing that you can pick holes at, and people will pick holes at it because there's so little we've seen. You're just going to pick holes of what tiny things you can see. So I don't think in the end of the day it's going to be a big deal. But I can see why some people would point at it and say, maybe this could have been slightly better.
The only thing I'll say for that is, I mean, it's not like Resident Evil has had its fair share of like just a couple of non-stupid moments, or something that seems like horror movie ditzy almost with like trained veterans. We've seen that happen to other people before. We've seen Chris get lured into a trap when it was clearly a trap with Carla and everything. I was just like, why you're supposed to be a little bit smarter than this, but it's fine. It happens. It's for story setup. As long as it goes somewhere where the character develops in an interesting way, I don't mind someone starting out is naive or a little bit stupid, but it depends on the rest of the development so far. For the rest of that demo where Grace was trying to figure out what was going on, it seemed fine. Figuring out, oh, the guy is infected, or I need to use my wits and get out this way, or I need to activate this fuse, and just thinking like really quickly. That's the stuff I'm interested in seeing, and how that bounces off other people, other characters, and as they sort of maybe educate her into seeing the ropes of this is how BOWs are coordinated, fighting them, all this other stuff. And I think that'd be cool actually if we just pick up the pieces from there. But yeah, a lot of the writing is going to come down to some convenience at one point or another when we discuss it on the podcast, the spoiler cast that we have. But we'll see what happens. So we're moving on to the next question, which is how do you feel about the idea of there being like empty ink ribbon cases, and the monster is able to throw things at you within the environment? So first time we see environmental stuff being used by the creatures in quite some time. What do you think about it, Shadow? It is your turn.
Yeah, seems reasonable. I think there's very much an element of developers trying to kind of they're trying to diversify themselves a little bit, and I think it's more trying to play in this general sense of how Grace is not in control of events remotely, and she's very much subject to the whims of kind of the wider picture going on. Again, kind of adding to this sort of the slight helplessness sort of feeling, and kind of instilling on you that you're basically all you're trying to do is survive, and that's there's going to be things around you that don't like you, and that they're willing to and able to use the environment against you. So yeah, I think in that respect I get it. And I think they're placing like into ink ribbons in it as well. It's like trying to kind of like keep the player off, kind of unsettled, kind of make them feel that they're never truly safe. I think it also is probably going to basically add into like a concept of a bit of basic adaptive difficulty going on in the background. If you're struggling, you'll probably find those into cases might actually be full more often than not. So I think it's another soft way of kind of adding in adaptive difficulty, which has been very much a part of games now for a little while now. So there's some under the scenes stuff going on, and it kind of plays in some lore, but I don't think it's the biggest deal. Like, sure, what the hell? We'll have the monster throw stuff at you. Like, I don't see a problem with that.
I think it's personally it's the same thing, subversion of, hey, you get an empty ink ribbon case. Normal player is gonna be like, what the fuck? Why can I not just save my game and pick up a regular ink ribbon and go? I guess they kind of want you to be a little bit more investigative, so to speak, and find, hey, this is where I find the actual ink to put in here and make it ink ribbon in the first place. So it leads to more crafting, more experimenting, more exploring with the environment, and finding tools for your survival. I think that's what they're trying to toy with this, and I personally don't mind it, because I mean, it's the same thing as trying to find some handgun ammo to encounter the next battle, and you only have like 7 bullets, but 7 bullets it will do. I like it for the most part. The same for the monsters. I just hope that it's the only thing I have to say about this further is that I hope that you can also do the same to them if they use the environment. Why can't I use the environment? Because it's kind of like Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, where Jill had those explosive boxes and those barrels in the background, and you could shoot them and blow things up. So it's like, if you give the enemy that ability, I would also like to have that ability to use stuff against them as well, and then to make for a dynamic little push and pull. They can throw stuff at me, maybe like a table. I can maybe duck around, sneak around, and use some acid to my advantage, and it'll spill over them and do extra damage if I think strategically. Or it could be option C of a player where they shoot something they're not supposed to and they blow themselves up, or acid falls on them, and that can also happen in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Therefore, I like the whole trial and error, risk reward. What are you gonna do if you're standing in the general vicinity? you might get hit or you might not get hit. You have to weigh your options, and I think that'd be very great for just environmental gameplay and trying to figure out what to do. So I like that very much. Next up is Enderlution. What do you think of enemies using the environment and you needing to get some extra stuff for your ink ribbons to combine them with?
So, I mean, I'd say it's good at environmental gameplay. I mean, it really shows off. Is this something like new we haven't seen with the RE engine before? I don't know.
In terms of new and RE engine, I would say no. I guess maybe
No.
you could think of the idea. Remember, Birkin could take that giant ass bridge and try to smack you
Oh
with it.
yeah, that's right.
In Resident Evil 2 remake,
But
yeah.
these are like smaller items, though, right?
Yeah, these are smaller items, so I guess it's sort of partially new in those regards, but it's interesting because it creates an idea. If you think you're far from spacing, like you're standing far apart from the monster, oh, I'm gonna throw something at you now. So that's like, oh, okay. So that part is the interesting part.
Remake 3 had a couple of bits and pieces as well, if I seem to recall. They've played around with it in times, but not heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, it seems like it's gonna be used maybe more. But I mean, it's still not new, but it's gonna be interesting for this like game, just how the survival horror just plays in the aspect of it. And empty ink ribbons, does that mean like we get a save with those?
It seems to me like they're gonna be a combinable item at this point now, where you can get the empty cases and then you have to get something else for them and combine them, or it could be an instance of they're trying to fake you out. There's ink ribbons in the game, but you happen to find the ones that, well, are empty, and you have to find some other alternative to make them work, or you have to find full ink ribbons, which I hope it's not too RNG, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like it because it's like, oh, I need to like craft to save, but sometimes like when you're trying to get in like a quick session, that's got to be like quite annoying. But I'm interested in like the more difficult like difficulties then, if it's already like that.
I would just like for them to pull something. If they're gonna make an RNG base where it's just random and stuff like that, just to fuck with you, I prefer them to do something like that on hard, where obviously
maybe give the option to turn it off too.
Yeah, you could turn it off too, so the items are normalized as they go, or you could have your randomized items mode, arrange mode, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd probably see that happening since they're doing the difference between the first person and third person. You have that option, so there's probably going to be a lot more alternatives, you know.
Well, what about you, Mr. Graves? What do you think of them potentially pulling randomized items that you have to mix and match with the empty ink ribbons? And do you believe that the environmentals where the enemies can throw stuff at you, is that a good thing, a bad thing? How do you feel about it?
Well, the enemies throwing stuff at you is definitely going to be more of a challenge, and I'm totally for that. I mean, like here we go, bringing up RE4 again. Enemies are able to throw, you know, like their weapons at you and stuff, and you can deflect it with your knife as Leon. Obviously, you probably won't be able to do that as Grace. Maybe you will. Who knows? I have no idea what they're going to be doing with this game later on through it. But and for the whole thing of finding empty cases of ink ribbons, that's interesting to me. I do think, like you said, I do think they're going to be a combination item. You're going to have to go around and you're going to have to find something and combine this to make this. Just like how they do, like with ammo, you get like the gunpowder and whatever, and then you put it together and boom, you have ammunition. So yeah, and it also gives me, I don't know, I guess more hope for this game at the same time. Not saying I didn't have hope to begin with, but now I'm going to get to actually explore more, and that's awesome. Obviously, I mean, you know, Grace is in the FBI, so she has the, you know, the skills and stuff to go look for stuff and whatever. That's not obviously what I meant to say, but I can't get the words out right now, but it's okay. So yeah, I'm just really excited to see what both these things do to the game.
Alrighty, we're gonna move on to question number 8. Capcom says that excuse me. Capcom says that Resident Evil 9 will be so-called old school Resident Evil game is going to be reminiscent to Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is all good. The new director teased a new system that will create a complete roller coaster ride between the different aspects of the series. What do you think this new system is in particular, and how do you want them to shake this game up compared to previous entries? And we will go with Shadow first.
So I had a look at this the interview and like the conversation that's being had about this. I'm gonna be very honest. I feel like a lot of what was said in that, there was a lot of corporate speak. There was a lot of buzzwords. There was a lot of kind of that sort of talk I think was happening there. I'm gonna be brutally honest. In the fact that he ended up in the midst of that, ended up started kind of contradicting himself in his own sentences. So I'll be honest, I'm not really taking what was said in a huge amount of like seriousness. I think one thing that is worth noting, probably more generally, at least from the gameplay that we've seen so far, is that I do, when it was mentioned about how the gameplay is going to be a lot more reminiscent of the likes of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Remake 2 particularly. I do think there's a lot of truth in that, not just in like the first person, third person camera angles, that sort of thing, but also when you think of Resident Evil Village and certainly Resident Evil 4 Remake as well. They're very much more kind of action-y titles. There was a lot more revolving around like actual combat aspects. There was elements outside of that, but it was very much more on the combat focus of things, and an action horror, and definitely I think the kind of the more survival horror scary part of it, I think, is what started and kind of kicked off this renaissance period that we're currently going through for Resident Evil, and survival, I think, probably as a larger case with the Silent Hill remakes as well. So it makes sense to me to kind of go back to that. Again, as someone who's played Resident Evil 2, the original one, a lot, and I played through Remake 2, as someone who knows the game a ton, there's a couple of things I could poke holes at, but for an experience for someone who's never played a Resident Evil game before, and it being so long since the last proper one had come out, and it was a chance to kind of reinvent the series and bring it out to people who'd never integrated with the series before, it was a fantastic jumping point. And I still recommend, if I know someone who's never played Resident Evil game, I'll say go find Resident Evil 2 Remake, get it on sale for like a tenner, and play it, and you'll absolutely love it. And most people do. So I think them doing this and kind of going back to that, I think makes more sense, especially if you're going to have a character like Grace. It's not going to be very action heavy. She's not designed like that. It's not her character, it's not her being, it's not her personality. You're very much harkening back towards the likes of the early Resident Evil, which are more exploration based, that are more puzzle based, especially for someone like Grace, who's kind of he's going to be viewed like the kind of the numbers person. Like there's going to be more puzzles. It kind of fits into that person. Like, she's a puzzle solver, she's a thinker. And so going down that route. So as far as this new system and stuff concerned, I think it's just a lot of corporate speak. I really don't see like a lot of substance in what was said. A complete roller coaster ride. I mean, of course you're going to say about your game, you want people to think there's going to be like this wave of emotions and this outly unforgettable experience. You're not going to say, we're just doing the same thing we did 2 years ago, using the same engine, same system. It'll be all right. That it was fun last time. You're never going to say that in an interview. So there's a lot of buzzword stuff going on. I wouldn't really pay a huge amount of attention to it. The one thing that I did kind of get memories of when they was talking about like the roller coaster, my mind was taken back to the original Left 4 Dead back in 2008. He wants to say 2007, somewhere around then. And the AI director that came out for that. Now nowadays we look back and think, it just makes sense. It was basically the birth of like proper adaptive difficulty, but at the time it was just completely revolutionary. Like, why has no one thought about this before? And it was done so cleverly, and so integrated so well that it became very much a staple of a lot of stuff nowadays. That adaptive difficulty is just part of the deal. It happens in everything. So I think that's probably what he's referring to. There's going to be a revamp of that. Like if things are going pretty rough for you, maybe they'll ease it off. If and whatever else, and trying to like kind of control it that way. But as we've seen as well before in other games, it's very hard to get that right. I would cite Back 4 Blood as a very good example of trying to do that and not doing it very well. So that's a whole conversation another day. But as far as the actual what he said, there's a lot of corporate speak. I wouldn't pay too much attention about it, but I am probably pleased in the direction that it's taken. I think it's the right way to go.
All right, it is my turn. I guess I'll go right into thinking about what I think of Nakanishi's statement. For me personally, when a developer says we're treading new ground, we're doing something new, we're doing something innovative and unique, that's kind of a hard sell to me at this point as a hardcore gamer, because I start to think, you know, you get to a point where you start saying that, and then the game comes out and it's just a slightly different variable, or it's nothing really new or super innovative, or maybe they tweak something a little bit better than most people, which is a good sign, but it's not necessarily new. When I think of new, I think of stuff I've never seen before. That's the first thing I started thinking, like, oh, do something I've never seen before, something I rarely see other people doing but successfully these days. Like, that's where I put that terminology. And every time a developer has said something like this, they have always either, most of the time, did some variable, something that's already been done. That being said, there is one thing I said on the podcast. I said it before, I'll say it again. I think having some sort of system where there's like overwhelming like odds and enemies just like crazily mixing and matching to like a higher degree would be absolutely absurd, but I don't think it's going to fit this whole we're trying to rope in everyone to be able to play the game. That's like for some hardcore hard difficulty stuff that I don't think they will be going for if they want to also appease the casual crowd. But I feel like maybe some crazy action horror segment that's vastly different would be a little bit awesome, but that's not the feel of what we've seen from this game so far. We've seen dread, we've seen horror, we've seen suspense, and I think that just ratcheting up the difficulty is not in the wheelhouse of what they want to go for. But I'm all for them attempting to impress me. That's completely fine. If they can make an element that will keep me on my toes and I'm like, oh shit, well, this needs to be in more horror games, I'm all for that. I will say that, when they made the segment of House Bienvento, and they just made it scary as fuck, and people were like, I want more of this, and now we're gonna scale back from this. It's just like, I don't know, it's a weird sort of contradiction that Shadow is saying of what Nakanishi is saying, but I also think that a lot of it is us getting like toyed with as much as possible, because in the back of my mind I was like, how can you talk about a game where the center focus is it's a murder mystery, and therefore you kind of have to dance around a lot of mechanical elements and things you're introducing and characters you have not shown yet, which is why I guess I see why he said the way that he said, because if I was a businessman on the other side of the table, I would be saying less at this point about this game, considering the way that it is made and how it presents itself. So some part of me gets it, another part of me wants to understand more, but that's just a human element of me. I just hope that whatever they introduce that's new for a mechanic is good and it fits along the line of what they're trying to go for with Resident Evil, which is, make me scared and make it interesting, and that's what I want to see. Enderlucian, it is your turn. What do you think about this question of them introducing a supposed new mechanic? Do you think they're gonna pull it off or no?
I mean, I potentially, it's looking so far with Requiem. It's different. Most definitely, it's something we haven't seen before, but I feel like there's a lot more to uncover. So I can't really give my opinion on that, though I haven't really watched much of the gameplay either. I've seen like a bit, like when Grace like stumbles when she's running. I do like those new mechanics in the third person everything, but I feel like if they do, like, for example, introduce like Leon in, then we're gonna have more than what we've seen so far. I'm just open to it.
I'll add on one last point. If they say new and then all of a sudden it's sort of like a forensic gameplay element where you have to search bodies or use some high tech or whatever, my brain is just automatically gonna go, this has been done countless times before in other games. I hope that's not the case. Whatever it is, I just hope it's exciting, it's actually new, or something that a developer has not done in a long time and they just do it the best in this game. Because I swear to God, if they say something like that, I'll be like, this is not, I've done this 80 times. I just did it in Condemned Criminal Origins, which came out in 2006, where I go around and I do forensic stuff and I try to figure that stuff out in puzzles. So it's, I just hope not. But my brain is having some weird sneaking suspicion this might be what they're referring to. But I guess we'll find out. Mr. Graves, how about you? Capcom says they're introducing a new element into the game. What do you think this could be, and are you excited for it, or cautiously optimistic, or do you just hate the premise in general? What do you think about this?
To be honest, I don't exactly know what they mean by complete roller coaster ride between the different aspects of the series and this new system. Like you said, if they're just like, oh, this is brand new, this has been done before in a Resident Evil game, and it's just me like being a detective and like looking over bodies and like taking blood vials and samples and running them through like chemistry sets and shit, like I don't know. But it could be because I don't know, when you're running down the hall in the demo and you trip and you fall and you try to get the fuse into the box and then you go, oh, and then like you miss it or something because she's like super nervous and scared, and it's just like upping the ante of like being terrified and like dropping things. Maybe that's what they mean. I honestly have no idea of what they mean by that. But yeah, like I said, I hope it's not, forensic science. That'd be really stupid, but
Funny enough, forensic science has happened before. I think it's what you're about to say. They've done forensic science before. Resident Evil Revelations.
Yeah, they have. You had the thing.
Yeah,
that's right, on the boat. So I forgot about that.
So if they say it again, it'll make even less sense in this game.
Yeah, right.
I just thought of something else real quick, and then I'll move to the next question. But Mr. Graves brought up something interesting where it's like they're trying to ratchet up the set pieces, and this is not in the document, but Grace stumbles in third person, and they said in first person they don't have that there because it would have been vastly difficult to program that. So there are things that are different between both perspectives that they want you to clearly see. And I believe that's the second answer, is they want to do something with set pieces that is a lot more elaborate. And we know that set pieces are a big part of some of the other previous Resident Evil games, but they said it's done in a dynamic way. But I think that's another thing that they could do, which is reasonable. It makes sense, and it might be reminiscent to what they're trying to say, but it all depends on how it's all executed, because any set piece could be cool, but if it's, if it doesn't fit the thematic of the game, then it's kind of a failure, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, hopefully they like add like with the stumbling and everything, I hope they had like a mode where it changes between them. For example, in like more intense situations, you have like third person, it goes into third person, then like just low points it's first person where it's more scary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be something cool to add. Maybe it does it automatically.
I said in a video about the stumbling, this is not a question in the document, so I'm gonna let people chime in after me, but I know people are having issues with it. Oh, why did she stumble on the ground in third person? And I'm just like, number one, you don't have this in first person, so switch to that. Number two is, as long as, because this happened a lot in Evil Within 1 and 2, as long as I can still get up and get away, it's totally fine. This is that thing that a lot of AAA games will do to show the immersion in third person, where a character falls over, interacts with the environment. We've seen it before. Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War. A lot of games that are third person do that.
It's artistic effect.
Yeah. So it brings in the realism and the scary nature with the character. So as long as it doesn't hinder me way too much in gameplay, I think I'm personally all for it. I actually like it. There's a deep down portion of my brain where it's like I kind of like the idea that your character is just whimpering away in fear, and it's just that thing of you actually get an assessment of the situation in a realistic and authentic manner, which is cool. It's awesome to me, so I don't mind it. Does anyone else have any opinions on the stumbling? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I definitely do, 100%. Oh boy. A question that's slightly wider, and this might be a question maybe a couple people don't want to hear. Who was asking for a Resident Evil game to have a mix of first and third person? Who actually was asking for that?
I actually don't know. I know. Okay, so I'll break it down like this real quick. I know there are people that complained about 7 being first person solely, and the complaint was, oh, I have motion sickness, and I'm not downplaying if someone has that or whatever. I just know that that was a criticism for that game. And then there are the people that say third person is they don't prefer, they want to go to something else, or they thought that Resident Evil 7 did it best at the time, and then they find it more scarier that way. So I think this solution was just to try to appease both of those camps. And it is hilarious when you have another camp that says, fuck all this, bring back fixed camera, and I don't care about first person or third person. So I'm hoping... Good.
The fixed camera angle stuff is a non-starter. Like, I get why people say about it. I understand. I have enough of that, like, in my own circles. But it is a relic of the past. It was done because it had to be. It's just not conducive to the gaming anymore. Like, there'll maybe be the odd reference here and there, but you are not going to get a mainstream game in 2025 that is built off of fixed camera angles. It's just, it's not helping anyone. It's just not, there's not a solution. So it's just, come on guys, like,
Yeah.
it's just, come on.
I hate to say it, but if they try to do all 3 in the future, I think it's just a waste of resources at this rate. Honestly, just focus on first and third, or one or the other. Just make the best game you possibly can with the camera perspective. That's all I want.
The last time that it was done well was Resident Evil 5 with the Lost in Nightmares DLC, where you could, if you wanted to, and you knew how, you could activate a fixed camera angle for the first half of the DLC. And it was very well done because it was done in an environment where there's very little action actually happening. It was mainly puzzle solving, working stuff out. So you could do that. You could get away with doing the fixed camera angles. There was very little combat go. Once you went out of the initial area and moved on to the next bit where it got more actiony, immediately shut it off because it would be impossible to work with that. You could also do it because it was a small section in a part of a DLC that lasted for about 30-40 minutes. It didn't outstay its welcome. It didn't, persist throughout the rest of the game. It was a small area, nice cute Easter egg that you could do. Fine, you can't build a game like that anymore. But it's just it's ridiculous. But as I alluded to earlier, I think my concern, and understandably it is concerns of a few people, is that if you design a game like Resident Evil 7 and it's first person and that's your camera mode, you design it in a way so that the viewer who's viewing it in first person can get the most out of the experience. If you design a game like Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 4, whatever the hell that's the over-the-shoulder, then you adjust how you design the game. You adjust how set pieces are viewed. You adjust how combat operates, because you have to. It's a different camera angle. You can't run it exactly the same. You've got different tools at your disposal. Inevitably, the problem you've got then is that when you have a game where you can have either of them at any point, you're kind of in this middle spot of, like, you can't. It's difficult to be really creative in how you exercise certain set pieces because you don't know how the person's going to be watching it. and because you don't know how they're going to be watching, you have to generalize a bit of your design. You can have like these really cool, like minute details going on, but if you're not in first person, your camera's so far away you can't see it, so you can't appreciate that. At the same time, if it's this big giant hulking thing going on, then if you're in first person, it can get a bit lost on you because you're just at a single focal point. If you're zoomed out, it's like Leon and the freaking the Del Lago, whatever it is in the lake. Like, because it's third person, you can kind of see Leon's scope of his size in comparison. You realize just how huge it is in first person. It looks big, but it's just not as impressive. So these are just little things that I do fear is going to hamper this game a little bit. And I think there'll probably be some occasions where it will likely force a camera angle for a certain section of the game. I could definitely see that happening. But yeah, I just think you're just better off just design it in one way. This whole having both options, I think, just is needless, because now you're in a situation where people are going to say, well, what's the correct way to play this game? What's the true version? Should you play it in first person because you're not a scaredy cat? Should you play it in third person because you want more of an environmental kind of feel? And no one really knows. And I just feel like you kind of lose a bit of that defining experience. Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, like, were they worse games at being first person? No, I think they were games that were made use of the fact that it was quite novel, and I think catered the experience to that very well. And you designed the game around that. So once you start having multiple camera systems in the same game, you're just asking for complications and trouble. And I do worry that it's overcomplicating the process for not really a lot of gain.
Yeah, I was logically thinking this too. I was like, two camera styles. Clearly speaking, that had to take a lot of research and development to get right. And I'll give benefits where it's due. There are a lot of people who have played the game, and I heard their impressions, Maximilian, other people as well, and they said that both camera styles are fine. They play right, they play good, there's no issues between them. But I'm also hearing people say that, and this is mostly journalists, but I heard them say that, well, third person is not as scary as first person, so they try to do things in various ways, like, oh, you stumble over, or there's more things in the background that may occur if you're in third person. And I'm kind of wondering, with the way they're saying that, is that going to affect the scares in third person and be like, well, it was a waste of time, you should have just made the game in first person, if that's the recommended for playing with Grace in the beginning, and it does put those questions in your brain. I don't know how it's going to work. I just hope that both of them function efficiently and that they don't rip away scares just because one version seems to be superior with it. It should be across the board if you're doing two things. And I am with Shadow. If it came down to the future, and if I want them to make a solid focused game and not just an extra camera style, just, hey, it's going to be first or third and that's it, that's totally fine. I don't mind it here, and I also don't mind it if it doesn't come back in the future, if they decide to say we want to put more focus into the quality of the game itself. If they said that, I'd be like, fine, you can do what you want as long as you give me a quality game. It doesn't even have to be there. So that's kind of how I feel. Anyone else?
Also noticed, I'll just add in. What I also noticed in the interview as well was how once the question was brought up about, like, oh, well, you're doing this through camera angles, like, sure, it's going to complicate the process. They were very quick to shut. I was like, oh, so no, it's not more work. Okay, actually, it's a little bit more, but it's not like twice the work. I think there was immediate nervousness of trying to kind of shut down it's complicated the thing a lot, because people think complications and they think trouble development cycles, and that can be a bit of put off the games. So I did note they were very quick to kind of try and close that down and say, oh, it's not a big deal, when, like, let's be honest, it is.
Yeah, it is totally 100%. I would believe it. I think that took significant time from them. I would say at most they had to be, hell, I would say even 3 years, because you're doing something big. You have to program most of the game around two different things and make them sort of correlate to the differing playstyles. Yeah, that's gonna, even the idea that there's animations that doesn't happen in first person, that had to be programmed. So it's definitely a big deal. But anyone else have any opinions on how they're doing two camera styles before we move on?
I just hope that from balancing between first and third person doesn't ruin the experience for me. Like everyone's been saying, like, I don't know. Like third person seems a bit more terrifying when you can see what's running after you behind, but if in first person you don't know what's there, it's also kind of scary at the same time. But like obviously they said in first person you don't stumble. Well, I mean, don't you want to see Grace stumble, right? Like you want to see her being terrified. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens when the game comes out.
And Lucian, you have anything to
Mods.
say about this?
I don't know, mods. Some first mod.
Mods. Yeah, okay.
A stumble mod.
I mean, you're not
Stumble
wrong.
mod.
They probably will fix it. They'll be like, "Oh, we don't like this. Get the stumbling out of this game. Here's a mod you can download." Yeah.
Oh no, I was talking about like adding some animation in first person where I don't know. But I mean they could remove the stumble too. I could see them doing that with like because they did that with the yellow paint.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I remember
Yep.
that.
Yeah. But yeah, mods.
But we're gonna move on to the next question, and that is question number 9. Capcom did say there's gonna be returning creatures for Resident Evil Requiem. Considering how we talked about evolution earlier, is there any returning creature that you would like to see evolved, or maybe like it has 20-30 years time to it and it's been affected the whole time and you want to see it turn into a deeply evolved monstrosity? Which creature is this? Explain why, and we will go with Shadow first.
So I got a couple for this. One that I think is going to come out that I don't really care for. I think I bet the Paleheads from Remake 2. These are the dudes that are like mainly in like the side games. How that like you shoot them, they go like faster and shit like that. I think they're called Paleheads. You might remember what I'm talking about. I think they were in Resident Evil 3 as well. I could be wrong.
Yeah, they're the zombies you shoot, and when you shoot them, they start smoking and they have that weird noise. It's I know them. Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised to see them back. I don't really care for it. I think the only thing I think can and will are Lickers. We haven't seen Lickers for quite a while, actually, outside of in mainline Resident Evil. It's been some time. Why not bring him back to Raccoon City? What the hell, right? I think that would be my pick to see Lickers make a return. I think they're always a good time.
Okay, I'll go with my picks. I have like probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 of them. We'll see. But number 1 is gonna be, I want to see what a tyrant looks like maybe 20 years in after so much mutation, because that would be very interesting. Like, what would that look like in particular? I know there's been variants of tyrants before so far, even to the point where they look like they teleport, but I think seeing them, because they were known as the ultimate bioweapon of the T-virus and everything, that'd be cool to see how they have thrived for years upon years upon years in Raccoon City. Another one would be obviously hunters. I'm a big fan of hunters. I love them very much. So to see them evolved in a way, it's always cool seeing variants of them, whether it's Hunter Gamma or the frog ones, or the ones that are the hunter betas that are all like sort of messed up in Resident Evil 3. I would love to see that and how they have turned after so many years. And then I'm trying to think of a more Raccoon City specific ones. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I would honestly love to see like boss infected characters come back. So if you know they experimented with this new virus or a new evolution, you could do a nemesis sort of deal, and that'd be pretty creepy if that thing has thrived for like many years and it's just hunting people around the area because they need to clean things up. That would be absolutely sick. I think this game just needs to be, with creatures, they have to have as many evolutionary callbacks as possible to vary it up and also say, holy shit, we're seeing something that we've seen before, but we've never seen this version of it. And I think it needs to scream to that level, which is why I picked like a couple of picks from there. And also the zombies. They said zombies are in the game, but they're going to be also kind of different. And I know they say that for every Resident Evil game, so I hope they actually do it, as opposed to RE6 where, well, they brought back zombies, but I was basically throwing them around like they were jelly beans. They were literally they didn't feel like a true evolution, even though they said the C virus zombies are stronger than the T virus zombies, which is, it just didn't feel that way. I was throwing them around like jelly beans. So I hope they actually do unique things, like maybe a zombie is mixed with some tentacles that will attack you, or they do very insanely interesting things with their bodies as they mutate, which I thought RE6 was gonna do, but they only do that with the Jwavo. So just to see something like that for zombies would be kind of interesting if they do it in a fascinating body horror style way that will keep you on edge and be like, okay, there's certain types, because you know, in other survival horror games there's certain types of different zombies and stuff like that. You always just get the prototypical shambling ones in Resident Evil, so they should do something interesting like that. Like Left 4 Dead has many differing variants of zombies, and that's a good blueprint that will work for a horror game. I would love to see something like that. At the most, we had whoppers, which were giant zombies, and that was it. So just do something interesting with the variants, and I will be intrigued by that notion. Mr. Graves, it is your turn. What returning enemy would you like to see come back evolved in Resident Evil 9 Requiem?
I think it'd be cool to see like another version of Nemesis, maybe, or like a tyrant. I remember, was it the remake of Resident Evil 1 with the Crimson Heads with the zombies when it would turn nighttime or something like that? Or no, you would shoot them and you'd have to burn them, or else they'd come back as Crimson Heads.
Yes, and they would run essentially.
Yeah, so I think that'd be kind of cool. Maybe if we got something along the lines of like maybe some type of a Crimson Head zombie, maybe depending on like you have to do certain things to these things, or else they come back like 10 times worse. Different types of zombies, like you said, would be really cool. Like I mean, Left 4 Dead obviously is like a phenomenal game for when it came out, and still holds up till this day. I actually really enjoy playing it still. With all the different types of creatures, I think that'd be really cool to experience that as well as Grace, or you know, as whoever else you're playing as in the game. So yeah, so.
Enderlucian, it is your turn. Is there any returning enemies that you would like to see them introduce for Resident Evil 9 Requiem?
I mean, as previously mentioned, the Lakers, the Hunters, I would be extremely curious. Oh, with the Lakers, I can imagine like if they were to like mutate or something, they maybe would not only rely on sound, maybe they would have eyes. I don't know. No, that's really curious. That's something I've maybe got in mind. Like there's more, like they can detect you with. Hunters, I mean, they have that one insta kill hit, that like that pounce, and that would just be like if they were like mutated or something. I feel like that would be so much scarier. Maybe some sort of tyrant. I mean, who knows? Maybe I hope like some things like come out of that lab. Or was that lab? Was that lab like
Nest
screwed up? Yeah, Nest. But Nest is gone, right? Huh?
Well, considering they bombed the top of Raccoon City, but the bottom probably still is there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
imagine what's in there. I mean, Ivy's were in there. Yeah. Oh, the things in the water in the sewers.
Oh, the G mutants is what they call them.
Yeah, the mutants. Yeah. I mean, dogs, Dobermans. I mean, that would be interesting. I mean, I don't know what they would do with that, but
I said in the chat, I kind of just want them to do something crazy, like it's similar to, I know it's not a good movie at all, but it's the Alien versus Predator sequel that they had where they made the alien. I would like to see some weird monstrosity where it's like two monsters like bred into
like
one.
what?
Like if you put like a hunter or a licker together or something, like what would that
God.
look? That would be absolutely insane.
Oh no.
Like if
That'd be terrifying. Yeah.
see if going back to that dynamic question, if they did something where they just took a basic idea, we're gonna breed monsters together that you're familiar with, that would actually be new and shocking in my personal opinion. That would keep me on my toes. Be like,
Yeah.
how do I deal with this new creature that does it looks similar to what I fought before, but it's a new enhanced version and we're just mixing and matching? That would be absolutely insane in my opinion.
And then Raccoon City at like the park, right? An Outbreak with the elephant.
We're actually going there, but we didn't go with the remake. Sad.
Yeah.
Because they said Raccoon
Yeah, I
City is
mean-
not going to be the only location in the game. They literally confirmed that in interviews.
I mean, we might get like other enemies like that elephant from Outbreak.
They could
maybe?
put zoo creatures or monsters in it. I don't know. The concept itself seems a bit hard to justify, even with Nakanishi. He was kind of saying, we kind of have to play with the fact that it's, well, Raccoon City got bombed and everything probably wouldn't be standing, but it needs to be recognizable enough in order to understand it's still a Raccoon City, which is a weird thing. That thing got blown to bejesus in the original games, where even RPD's front structure was obliterated. But
Yeah,
now it's like we have the
crazy.
remake timeline. We can just change a couple of things and make it still standing.
But-
So
But maybe some things that went away and that just came back to Raccoon City. I don't know. Things venture.
yeah, 100%. But I think that is going to be possibly it for this podcast. We have one more question left, and that is, what are our general thoughts on the Gamescom trailer? This is the trailer they showed at the showcase, where it's Grace and Alyssa talking. So what do you guys think of that personally? I'll go first to kick it off. This trailer itself, okay, I don't know if I don't want to sound like I'm being too mean, but it really was a trailer where they showed us next to nothing. I feel like it was not a lot going on. You do get character dynamic of Grace and her mom talking, and clearly something is going wrong, because first there's this creepy asshole that calls and then he immediately hangs up, which is confirming that, well, this person is in the building, so I have to kill them. Lights go out, they go downstairs, and they sort of do this like pseudo gameplay segment where it looks like that's gonna be the intro level, where Alyssa's running around panicking, scared. Grace doesn't know what's going on, and then eventually she gets the sleeper bag put over her head. It's like this weird guy we always saw. He's just killing people randomly left and right, slitting their throats, and it does create a little bit of intrigue, but this trailer was essentially made to say not much is happening outside of a couple of things. We're gonna give you a little bit of Alyssa, see how she is, see what's going on. Then it just ends with her getting bagged over the head, which was it was expected because the previous trailer said, oh, Alyssa's dead, so this is probably the inciting incident at the end of this, and they cut it off there. End of trailer. It's a trailer that makes you ponder. It gives a little bit more I want more questions to what the hell is going down, and even the intro is probably not going to tell me, and that's the feeling that I got from it mostly. I did like the character moments of them saying that Grace is hyperventilating, she needs to do these breathing exercises, she's not the same as other people that may be well trained for this situation. But as a trailer itself, the first trailer is vastly more interesting than this one. I just felt like they put this one on for show because Geoff Keighley was like, hey, I need you guys to conjure something up for me. I will promote your game. He's super happy, and Capcom's like, we don't have anything, so take a small vertical slice and go. That's it. That's what I felt about the trailer. Shadow, what about you? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, you're not particularly wrong, honestly. It was not really that much the actual trailer itself. It's all largely just people speculating and chatting about what they think the game's going to possess, and that sort of thing. I give it a couple of plus points. Really like the rain ASMR at the very start of the window. Thought it was really nice and relaxing. Also, they misspelled mum. I'm pretty sure it's spelled MUM, but I suppose that's a minor point. But yeah, you're right. It's there wasn't much shown. Like a little bit of dynamic, like Grace is kind of like the slightly selfish teenager who's more worried about her, and then the mother who's like trying to look after her as best she can, but it's difficult. And then like a guy dies, gets stabbed. The bag over the head, very AEW. I'm sure John Moxley was incredibly proud of that. Outside of that, not a not a whole lot else going on, frankly. We'll find out more in the next couple of months. We'll get a bit more actual meat on the bone, but just something to kind of keep people going for now.
Oh, what about you, Mr. Graves? What do you think of the Gamescom trailer for Resident Evil Requiem?
The Gamescom trailer, like you said, doesn't really answer a lot of questions. It's also kind of goofy to me because, like, yeah, you have, talking to Grace, Alyssa talking in the bedroom. I do like the rain on the window is always a nice touch. I do agree with the shadow on that. But I don't know. She's like, all right, we got to go. And then they run down the stairs, and that dude comes out from the corner, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I should really get those lights fixed. Oh, and he just gets the bag over his head. And I'm like, what? And then they slit his throat. And then she's like, oh my God, we have to go over here. And then they start running, and then she's hyperventilating, which I did like that part. That definitely shows that she's definitely new to this whole situation. Yeah, she knows what her mom deals with, but she's probably never had to deal with anything like this herself. And it's going to be definitely an experience. But yeah, and then Alyssa gets the bag over her head at the end, and I'm like, that's it. So yeah, I don't know. I preferred the was it the second trailer more than the first trailer? Is that what you said?
No, the first trailer over the second trailer, the initial reveal.
Yes, yep, the first over the second for sure. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about the Gamescom trailer. It doesn't really answer anything, and it's kind of just a bunch of nothing. Just kind of to show some cool stuff that happens.
And Lucian, what about you? What do you think of the Gamescom trailer for Resident Evil 9 Requiem?
I mean, the first one was definitely better. First one was the initial reveal, but yeah, I don't think anything can top that. Other if they were to show Leon, depending on how they do that. if but yeah, there's not much. I didn't even upload my reaction to that one, so
I have a final bonus question that makes total sense to this, because I knew people were going to be a little bit like, this is kind of nothing for this trailer. It has some intrigue here or there, but overall it wasn't as good as the first one. For Tokyo Game Show, which is coming up pretty soon, and I know Capcom they are loading the pistol, because I saw their lineup for it and everything's going to be there that they announced and then some, according to them. For that trailer, what do you want them to show to invigorate your excitement a little bit more? And I will go with Ender Lucian first.
It was mentioned earlier, Leon, but I don't. I feel like I don't know if I want that seed for the game, but then that would get spoiled. But maybe monsters, Leon, just more we haven't seen before, because they've been sorely focusing. On the main story, of course, but just something different.
I think it's time to let the bag out on some of the second half of the game, which is some of the Raccoon City segment. I'm not talking about full in-game spoilers, since they already said there's going to be multiple locations. If there's going to be more old haunts, I would prefer to not have all that spoiled. But if Raccoon City is going to be the one that they showed off, that's the second one, the big second stage they go to. I think we need to see the veil pulled off of that, alongside maybe teasing legacy characters or characters in general who are going to be in this game, because I feel as though the villain itself, while they want to keep him all in secrecy and everything, and he's all scarred up and charred up and infected, I would like to see just a little bit more of him displayed in the trailer, like him capturing Grace and sort of showing a little bit of his face and some of his motivations, not all of it in particular, but I would like to know something about why he's doing what he's doing, and just leave it at there. If it's a super mystery character, then I get it, and they're saving him, but they definitely need to show more than we have seen before, and Tokyo Game Show will probably do that. I once again compare it to the second RE6 trailer. I think that's a perfect example where the initial reveal was great, and then the second one, even though they did a little bit too much to my liking, I would have preferred seeing Jake revealed as Wesker's son in the actual game. That trailer was amazing, where they were just unapologetically like going and saying, look, this is what the game is going to be, bigger in scale, bigger in scope, and we hope you come by and have fun with it. And that's kind of the same feeling that I want to feel with this trailer, bigger in nature, bigger in scope, and it has the internet talking for months and weeks until the game comes out. That's kind of how I feel. Shadow, it is your turn. What do you want for the TGS trailer?
I'm gonna put $10 that we have someone, probably Grace, walking up to the gates of the RPD, or what's left of it. It goes into the whole second half of the game, which is going to be taking place at in Raccoon City. As I said before, like it's all about nostalgia. It's very much a driver of the thing, and that's part of the deliberate design. I mean, realistically, like if the city had been hit with what it was hit, basically nothing would exist. So there's been some liberties taken with like some of it existing. It should be just complete ruins everywhere. But obviously, you're gonna have some degree of like memorable locations still being reasonably intact, so that you can kind of have that reference point and such. So yeah, I thoroughly expect that we will see some of RPD at TGS.
Mr. Graves, what about you? What is in your expectations of the TGS trailer that's upcoming, and what do you want to see for RE9 Requiem?
Well, like you said, for the Tokyo Game Show, they're probably definitely holding back on a lot of stuff, and they're going to blow away the audience, so they want to get them to go like talking about it for years on the internet or talking about it for months or whatever, right? And they're probably going to show maybe some characters that they didn't say were going to be in the game or something like that, like the legacy characters maybe come back or something. What I want, and I don't know if it's just me, but like when I see a trailer, and let's say it's like a spoiler, quote unquote, I guess, but not really, but you don't see their face, but you hear their voice, I think that would be cool. Like, you hear Grace talking to somebody, but you don't see who she's talking to, but you hear the voice and you're like, wait, that voice kind of reminds me of this person that I used to play in this one game. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what the Tokyo Game Show trailer is going to be, but I have a feeling it's going to be something probably pretty crazy, like you said, like with 6. So
that, and since you brought that up of them bringing something in and a flash and fans utterly going crazy about it for speculation, I don't know if they're ever going to do this again, because we as fans, we're not gonna buy it. But I remember the day I saw some of the RE5 promotionals and there was that flash at the end of Jill's grave. When I saw that, my brain was going insane.
Oh yeah, that was one of those egregious bait and switches I've ever seen in a video game. Oh my god,
my brain was going absolutely insane. I was like, wait, no way. Wait, Jill's dead. And the first thing I was doing was, I need to see everyone else's reaction. And they had the same reaction as me. What the hell is going on?
No, I called bullshit the moment I saw it. I was like, there's no way they'd do that. It's just impossible. And we eventually found out right. But yeah, that was a dirty bait and switch. I don't know if you get away with that nowadays. I legitimately, if you tried doing that in today, like you would just get so much anger over the internet about that, and people feeling abused. Like, yeah, just ridiculous.
And then it'll be like, well, I mean, Leon in itself, he's a superhero, so he's just gonna resurrect from the dead. That's the first thing that I'm gonna be thinking now. It's like, fool me once, shame on you. You know, fool me twice, shame on me. I'm just not. I wouldn't fall for it, but just something of some magnitude. I don't know how they're gonna pull it off, where it's like everyone is just talking about this one singular event. I do think they may try to pull something like that out of the hat, but it's gonna be done in a different way. To which I'm all for more speculation and stuff like this. I feel like this is the interesting state of the game, as well as most Resident Evil games, marketing wise, that come out. Is a lot of them have been like that, where they reveal something sort of substantial, and you're just left to pluck at the strings like a banjo and figure out what's going on, and then we find out in the main game. So I can't wait for it personally. We will be doing a podcast on that when it drops at the end of September. So look forward to that. We'll give our reactions to it and all the crazy shit that we will see in that trailer. But we're going to do sign outs now. I think this was a great discussion, and we're going to plug our social media. So for me, you can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative. You can find me on Twitch at Renegade Operative _ because someone took my name. And you can also find me social media everywhere, Renegade Operative. I'm not a hard man to find. My info will be in the description, and I will be playing Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta. I just picked that up, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm having fun with it. It's a 1-for-1 remake, but the new additions that they added to it is pretty entertaining for the most part. It feels really great, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So I will give first impressions of that tomorrow. Next up is Black Shadow.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube at Black Shadow 993. My channel has just resumed activity as I've just gotten off the night shifts, and think it'd be a good spot to go through Silent Hill Origins for the first time and lead up for Silent Hill F in a few weeks. And then also on Twitch at Black_Shadow_993, where I'm about to replay the Origin of Species mod for the original Resident Evil 2. Still probably the best Resident Evil mod I've ever played.
Next up is Enderlucian. Where can we find you on social media, buddy?
You can find me on YouTube, X, Twitter, whatever, Instagram at Enderlucian. I haven't uploaded, streamed in like 6 months on YouTube. I don't know, just know with it. I don't know, but yeah, in my Requiem reaction, I mean, I cuss a lot more in that. Yeah, it really caught everybody off guard, especially with RPD. But yeah, that's where you can find me. It was a pleasure being on here. Another Requiem.
Mr. Grace, where can we find you on social media, buddy?
I stream every Thursday and Friday at number 2 Ghouls, number 1 Graves. I am actually, like I said on the podcast already, I've been playing through Resident Evil 4 on hardcore mode, and I've been absolutely loving it, getting my ass handed to me. It's a great time. Come watch me, please. Yeah.
Alrighty, and we are going to sign out on this podcast. Once again, thank you guys for coming by. It's been a great time, and when we get more information, more survival horror games, we will be talking about it. I think I will be getting Silent Hill F very, very soon. So as soon as I get my hands on that, I will also have a podcast for that in the near future. So stay tuned. We will see you guys next time. Later.